Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the March 4th meeting of the Tiverton Planning Board. I'm going to start with attendance. Mr. Gerlach?
Present.
Ms. Combs?
Present.
Mr. Taylor?
Present.
Ms. Eva?
Present.
Mr. Hardy?
Present.
Mr. Clark?
Present.
And B.A. Lopes is not here tonight, and I am pleased this evening to take attendance for our newest member, so I hope everyone on the board will welcome Ann Lawton as our newest member of the Planning Board. Welcome.
Thank you very much. I'm present.
You're present. Also joining us this evening is our consulting planner, Ashley Sweet, our land use legal advisor, Todd Romano, and our land use clerk, Ed Rotella. So off we go. The first agenda item that we have is for a major land development master plan review. The applicant is BCP Properties LLC of Providence. It's a comprehensive permit application for Vital at Tiverton Commons, which is a proposed residential community consisting of 256 units. The applicant has indicated to us that they are unable to be here tonight, so the public hearing has been continued, should be continued until March the 13th. So what I need right now is a motion from a member.
Motion to continue to the March 13th at 6:30.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? All right, all in favor? Okay, so moved. So we will be hearing that on March the 13th.
That's a Thursday evening, right?
Yes, it is. Okay. Agenda item 2, and primarily most of our work this evening is planning board work. So we are going to start with Appendix A, the zoning ordinance, and I'm going to let Todd take us through this. Article 2 definitions, I think we have one possible new definition here.
Well, how do you want to start first, Madam Chairwoman?
Well, should we do the definitions first, or how about you take us through it in whatever way you think is going to be most logical for you, because you've got to present it.
We have the Conservation Development Ordinance Amendment, which should be easy, no changes from what we discussed last time. We have the Industrial Performance Standards, which we're now calling non-residential performance standards. And then we have the larger group of amendments.
Well, let's start then with the easy ones. So this is all under Appendix A. So why don't we start with Article 26, Conservation Development Projects, Section 9, Open Space, which specifies the forms of ownership of open space in a conservation development project. And as you may remember from our last meeting, Todd gave us language that would allow for a homeowners association to be the owner of the open space. We've had a chance to look at it. Does anyone have any questions or comments or concerns?
I'm totally fine with the content. I have a minor grammatical, which I was channeling my inner Rosemary here. Page 3. Last paragraph. The verb be shall not be altered. It says shall not altered.
Which
The
line
second,
number, Bill?
Line 2. Time of planning board approval shall not altered. Should be shall not be altered. But other than that, totally in agreement.
Is this the information that we got yesterday?
No,
You got it last
Okay,
week.
it was in the package from yesterday too, right?
this was,
2A-2?
I have no idea.
It was the second thing in the packet for this
Okay.
agenda
Yeah,
item.
it was 2A-2.
So include the word be, shall not be altered.
Altered, yes.
Any other comments? In that case, if I don't have any other comments, do I have a motion to amend Article 26, Conservation Developments, with the proposed language that allows a homeowners association to own the open space,
And that's consistent with state law.
consistent with state law?
Required by state law.
Right.
Thank you.
And so I will be happy to make that motion.
Is there a
Second.
second?
As amended by Bill Gerlach with a typo.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Okay. So then let's go to the industrial performance standards, which we also took up at our last meeting.
And which now have a new name.
This may require a little bit more discussion, but as you can see, or should have seen, we've retitled this non-residential operations and made that consistent throughout the ordinance, I hope.
Question-
Go ahead.
Questions or comments?
No, I thought it looked good. I didn't have any comments.
Okay. I mean, we did go through
Yeah.
the document at the last meeting. If there aren't any, then do I have a motion to amending Article 13, regulation of non-residential operations?
So I would move to approve the language as presented to us for Article 13, which is now being called non-residential uses.
Is there a second? Bill, I have a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Okay. All right, Mr. Solicitor, where would you like to start on the zoning?
Start at the beginning.
Okay.
Definitions. I included the entire definition section, A, so you can see it, but also because I don't want anyone to say that we're omitting words by not including them in the amended document, right? So, commercial marina. That was the first amendment.
So we have language that was given to us. Actually, we discussed this, I think, at our last meeting, and we now have draft language that looks pretty good to me. I thought about it, and I think all the bases have been covered.
Does anyone have comments about the commercial marina definition, at least?
I do not. I thought it looked fine.
I have one question.
Yes.
And I didn't think of this until now. So CRMC
Yeah.
regulates marinas kind of by size. So there are essentially small marinas that have lesser rules and regulations as opposed to larger marinas. The only thing I don't know about a commercial marina is whether or not somebody, and I know we have a couple of these in town, where there's an individual who fishes and rents one space at one dock, might be a private dock. Are they going to fall under the commercial marina thing, or would they be outside of that?
A single dock for a single boat.
We have one in Tiverton.
Yeah. That fishes, I mean, it's a
It's
quiet.
been here forever.
It's been here forever. It's a quiet thing. It doesn't disturb anybody. It's not really a marina. It's a,
I think that's the point, right? It's a
Right.
private dock.
Dockage.
yeah. Okay. All right. As long as we're okay, I just wouldn't want to interrupt that person's business. It's been there for a long time.
He'd be a pre-existing non-conforming use anyway.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. But if he but there are people who have docks that will rent them, right? So if you had to move to somebody else's dock, right, and had to rent there, I just want to make sure that that'd be okay. I think it is. It's a boat at a dock.
It's a single boat at a dock.
It's not a marina.
Right.
Okay. Just want to make sure. Any other comments or questions about the definition of a commercial marina?
Sorry, I was looking at and you can tell me if we don't want to go there yet.
No.
The performance.
No, we can certainly do that.
I thought I had read something in the performance criteria that indicated that you could not, there was no fueling,
Yes.
but the definition does include the potential for fueling. And I just want
They
to
should
make
be
sure that
consistent.
that's,
You're right. So what does the board
But
want?
my question is that realistic? I am not a boat person, and certainly not a commercial boat person, but is it unrealistic to think that you can't be fueling your vessel at a commercial marina? I don't know what the alternative is there. Again, I'm not a boat person.
Yeah, I mean,
I get the safety angle on it.
right, but we allow non-commercial marinas
Are allowed to have fuel.
are allowed to have fuel.
Yeah, and that's an inconsistency that sort of stood out.
And
for me.
the thing about fuel docks is they're completely and totally regulated by CRMC. I mean, it is not easy to get a fuel dock in this state anymore. So you got to jump through a lot of hoops to be able to get a fuel dock. But we do allow residential, or not residential, non-commercial marinas. So maybe we should allow that
That's
as
fine.
commercial.
I agree with that.
I might not be an authority on this, but commercial operators generally are going to fill from oil trucks.
That's what I was going to say.
They're not going to go to a
Fuel
marina
dock.
where all of the,
Right.
Okay.
the regular people go.
Yeah.
Commercial boats are going to call an oil company in and say, bring your truck down to the dock,
Fill the
Yeah.
boat.
and they'll run the hose out to the boat and fill that way.
Okay,
So it may be a moot point.
right.
But is it prudent to make commercial and non-commercial marina consistent in terms of
I kind of think so.
fueling?
I think so.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think it should be permitted,
Yeah. Okay,
Okay, so remind me of that when we
even
get
even
down.
if it's not used.
I'm trying to find it.
right. Okay.
But anyway, all right, so if we're going to do that, then the definition is copacetic here.
We just have to fix the standards to not.
Yeah.
Which standard, which number?
I'm
standard?
trying to,
Page 48.
Which number standard is that one?
oh, there it is.
J.
Yeah, number 22. So it's line 27 on page 48. Item 22, fueling at the dock or marina is prohibited.
Let me ask a question. I'm looking at the one pager that you sent out. Is that different than what's in the
Yes.
what's in the other document? Okay.
The one pager was only the driving range, right?
No, you sent out the.
You sent out a commercial marina one pager too.
Standards, or was that Ashley? Who sent that out?
No.
It wasn't me.
This is in the full document you sent out.
This is?
Yeah.
This is in the full, that's in the
Yeah.
full document, but we also have a.
There's also a one pager.
yeah.
I sent that out?
You did?
Go back and look.
That's probably.
Too much paper.
No, you did. You wrote it.
When we get there, Todd, I'll.
Crossed it off there. We'll do it again, too.
Okay. So, other than that, we're okay with the definition. So do I have a motion to approve the definition?
No, we don't need to do that.
You don't?
We're going to
Okay.
approve the whole thing at once.
Oh, perfect, thank you. Okay.
But there's another new definition that we need to discuss, and that's the driving T.
We don't have a definition for that, Stu, but we have performance standards.
Don't we have a definition for that?
No.
Okay.
But we have performance standards. Okay.
Mixed use was the next change in the definitions. Or mixed use complex, excuse me. Based on our conversation last time, and you'll see later on where we eliminate the retail multiple use something.
Question? I have a question. On the page 12 of this document, so the mixed-use complex, you've got 3 paragraphs, and the second, third line and fourth line of the second paragraph, it seems like words may be missing. It says florists and small restaurants as well, comma. Such as...
As well as, all right?
Oh, okay, so that's all it is. That's, okay.
It should be as well as office buildings. I take out the such. Yes.
Okay,
The comma, such, okay?
okay, gotcha.
Okay. Anybody else? All right. What are we up to, Todd?
Let's see. This is where we strike the shopping centers, malls, mini malls, and strip malls. Yeah, I tried to take elements of that and put it into the mixed-use complex that we just looked at,
Yep.
where they were not already included, obviously. We're good with this? Striking this? Ashley, you're okay with that?
We talked about it last time.
And we strike the use later on in the table. Yeah.
Could I just ask, could you give it a click or two on the magnification?
Well, Bill, how about...
Down below, like, see the, down in the lower right there, the 100%.
Right? Yeah. Oh, yeah.
There we go. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Grand.
All right, we're good then?
Yep.
Okay. Now we're into the district use table, Article 4. You'll see I've added paragraphs about the planned development park, the watershed overlay, and then a special note telling everyone that our note section in the table is advisory only, right? Because I don't want somebody to come back and say, well, you didn't tell me to look at some other article. Good?
Yep.
You're missing the word island. Line 16.
Yes, thank you. Anything else? Okay. In the notes section, I don't know if I highlighted them, and I apologize if I apparently did not. The very first one, for example, you see Article 8. That's a reference to the watershed overlay protection zone or district.
Yep.
And I did that wherever I could, wherever it was appropriate. All right? And then the first use that we are changing is the three-family dwelling from a special use permit to permitted by right, as we discussed last time, and we have three, I think it is, performance standards down below.
Yep.
Good? Do we need to look at the performance standards right now, or are we okay?
I think we're okay. We can-
Family daycare, we're changing from not permitted in the village commercial and industrial zones to permitted.
Just as a reminder, why we're doing that is because we have pre-existing non-conforming residential
Yeah.
units in these zones.
I don't remember discussing changing village commercial for some reason. Maybe we did.
Maybe it was general commercial, not
I think it was-
village.
General
Was it-
commercial.
It was,
It was one of the commercials. It was either general or highway.
General was already changed, so.
Oh, you know what? I think that is supposed to be highway commercial because there are some residential properties in highway commercial. I think that's just a typo. I think we're just off slightly by a column or two.
Okay.
Yeah, that would make sense because if you get down lower in the use table, we have, it's highway commercial that was updated.
Right.
Just give me a minute, please. Ashley, you're keeping notes as well? Thank you.
Okay, what's next? Home occupation?
Yes.
And we changed those for the same reasons, right?
Everyone good?
Yep.
These are changes that I was told to do last meeting. If you reviewed the table and you want other changes, speak up now. Okay. And again, we're talking about the general highway, commercial zones, industrial.
Right.
All right, so the next one is medical center. From 20 to 30 to 40,000 square foot building, permitting that in the industrial zone.
Yep. All good?
Cemeteries, we're prohibiting in the general and highway commercial zones.
Yep.
You'll see I've added back into the table the solar energy systems with a specific reference to that portion of the zoning ordinance rather than trying to figure out how to fit it in the districts, because it wouldn't work like that. Right?
Yep.
Recreation uses, driving tee or range, miniature golf course, permitted in the general commercial and the PDP floating zone only.
Yep.
Agreed? Yep. Public parks, we are going to permit both types of public parks in the industrial zone.
Yep.
Bathing beach, we are prohibiting in the general commercial zone.
Yes.
Professional home office, permitted in the industrial zone for the same reason that you did the family daycare
Yep.
and home occupation. And then you're permitting essentially professional and general offices and banks to have drive-throughs by special use permit in the industrial zone.
Yep.
Agreed?
Correct.
Yep.
Theater or concert halls permitted in the general commercial zone, yes?
Yes.
This is scintillating. Drive-throughs for any of the above zones in the highway commercial by special use permit. Yes?
Correct.
Yep.
I guess we could say this makes really good TV. What about specialty services? Print shops, photo studio, interior decorating shop permitted in the industrial zone? Yeah,
I'm sorry.
please.
You can tell me to wait on this.
No, please.
But going back to the concert hall,
Yeah.
the industrial.
I have no problem with that.
What was it?
To allow the theater or concert hall in the industrial zone?
That's why I'm
Think very big about that,
yeah.
very broadly,
Yeah.
and whether you want to allow that in the industrial zone.
You know,
I'm just bringing it up because we're reviewing it now.
Please.
That's all. I'm not advocating one way or the other.
I think that if you think about where the industrial zone goes up Fish Road, that there are places in that zone that it wouldn't fit. So,
Right, and we can look at the definition, if I can find it, of an industrial zone to maybe help.
yeah, I don't.
That's fine. That's
I think
fine.
there are places in those neighborhoods where it wouldn't fit.
Okay.
What is special use?
I think we leave it. No.
That's fine. We can leave it as is. for now.
Specialty services, photo shops, print shops, interior decorating, catering services, permitted in the industrial zone?
Yes.
Electronic or appliance repair shop, permitted in the industrial zone.
Yes.
Yes.
Retail businesses, 20,000 square foot, 20 to 40,000 square foot, permitted in the industrial zone.
Yes.
Mixed-use complex, over 40,000 square feet, permitted in highway commercial and in the PDP floating zone. So we agreed on?
size, max size?
Performance standards.
Okay.
Commercial marina, the W1 and W2 zone, I think that was pretty easy.
Yep.
Okay. Open to suggestions, though.
No,
Nope.
I'm good.
Okay. Wholesale business, storage of non-flammable, permitted in the general commercial, yes?
Yes.
Mini storage, permitted in the highway commercial.
Yes.
Retail outlet, accessory to wholesale or storage use, permitted in the general commercial.
Yes.
Rest is, oh, very importantly, I want to change the section number for cannabis uses from 13 capital A to 14. Agreed?
Sure.
Yes.
You okay, Trish? Going on?
Yep, yep.
All right, performance standards. Let's have some discussion. 3-family dwellings?
This is consistent with what we talked about last time.
Yep.
Okay. And if you have standards that you want to put into any of the other uses, now would be a time to do that.
I think the only thing, you had sent that email out about the consistency about sizing, so I don't know if you want to talk about this in performance standards or first or second, but I think that point was really well made, and we should talk about that. But I don't know where you want to have it in this
I think the
discussion.
performance standards, because that's where we set the size of the commercial marina, right?
Right,
And marina.
right. But can you, since I can't look at two papers at once on my computer here, can you remind us of where we have those inconsistencies then when we go through this?
Maybe. Ed will be able to because he'll pull up the email.
Ed, thank you, Ed.
So I don't-
Will you pull up that email?
Let's talk about driving tees, range, or miniature golf course, and I wish VA had been able to make it tonight. I took these standards, I did some research myself on Saturday, pulled up whatever I could. VA had sent Ashley some additional standards, which is what I ended up emailing to you on, or all of the standards actually on Monday. And I apologize, it was not completely timely, but you want to talk about these?
The only thing that struck me about that is the 40,000 square feet. So the aggregate size of all buildings combined should not exceed 40,000. That seems a little large for a driving tee or range, miniature golf course, or something similar. Usually they have very small buildings, and most of the space is allocated to the driving range itself. So 40,000 struck me as a little large. Now,
I'll tell you why I did that.
sure,
It was consistency with
Topgolf.
with other uses in that zone where it's permitted, but also Topgolf.
So Topgolf is a,
Does Topgolf need a big building?
Yeah.
yeah, it's
because
Oh, it
that's
does?
inside.
it's inside.
It's
Okay.
inside but open,
Yeah.
the whole front of the
Right.
building is open, but there's multiple levels, and every
Yeah.
level has a line of bays, and you're basically hitting out into,
Okay.
but it's enclosed on all other three sides.
Oh, I see.
And I'm not concerned at all about the 40,000 here because people just aren't going to build it, you know,
Right.
so,
Right, if they're going to do what
So
you're
you're
talking
just
about,
doing-
Stu, just the
exactly.
It's gonna be
standard,
small.
yeah,
Yeah.
It's
wouldn't
gonna
make
be-
sense.
Exactly, okay, fine.
Okay.
That's fine.
All right, well,
So
everybody.
that was a consistency issue.
Okay.
And that makes sense to me, yes.
And everybody understands that Topgolf is quite popular and it might be a great thing, so we're going to stick with
Yeah, I
it.
think that's just a hedge.
Okay.
That's hedging.
Okay. All right, I think that's good then,
Yep.
Todd.
I had a question.
Yeah.
So these additional ones that you sent by email, are they
Yes.
replacing what's here?
The ones that I sent on Saturday are still the first 5 or whatever it is, and they're still the first 5 on the email I sent to
It's
you on Monday.
adding more
Adding
to
more.
the
Yes.
original list he gave you.
Okay. Gotcha. Thank you.
And I think the approach there was to give you everything that we had found that was like out there in the world for you to think about, consider, and decide which you felt were appropriate. So you shouldn't look at those as like a suggestion that we think you should keep all of them. I think we wanted to show you what was out there. So we gave you a full list of everything, and you should consider what makes sense.
We hadn't been able to discuss specific standards last
Right.
meeting, so we did a brain dump for you to decide, call through it. So, given that, I'll just go through each one then. So we talked about size, we're all comfortable with the size of 40,000 square feet.
Yep.
And then the accessory facilities, and I try to identify those so nobody goes crazy and doing things that we don't want, right? So
Yeah.
putting greens, chipping area, pro shop, food and
Yep.
beverage service. A tee area of a driving tee or range where balls are hit into the open, like what Stu was talking about initially. It shall not be less than 200 feet from any property in a residential district and less than 20 feet from any street. We're good?
Yep.
I did have one question.
Sure.
So on the extra ones you said, it says an outdoor tee, and this one just says tee area. So is there a difference? I know nothing about golf, so you'll have to excuse me.
I just didn't go back and change the consistency, but.
Well, I think T area covers us, whether it's an outdoor or in the top golf example, it's partially covered and might be considered quasi-indoor at that point.
And we can discuss how we phrase it otherwise in the subsequent standards, and please.
That was my interpretation.
No, that's great.
Yeah.
So number 4 was a driving tee or range where balls are hit to the open, shall have netting systems along the perimeter, tall enough to catch golf balls, protect surrounding areas. Netting shall be durable. We have dark sky compliance.
The only thing, Tom, how high are the poles for the light? Does that go over?
I didn't put it here, I'm sorry.
What goes over the height limit?
The netting.
Oh, the
They're pretty
netting?
tall.
They can be very tall.
Yeah.
Think of
They have
one.
like FAA lights on top of them.
Yeah.
Well, maybe, do we have to say something about that then?
But they're gonna make them, they probably have a standard that they set based on how high up you are and how far
Right.
people can hit a ball.
Right.
They're gonna go just beyond that, so they make sure they get everything.
I mean, I'm certainly no expert in this, but I would hope that there is some sort of standard that any developer would be coming to the table with.
I guess if you have a developer come in, you can ask them what the standard is and have them explain why whatever they are proposing is sufficient height.
The
Right.
safety nets at top golf venues are approximately 150 to 170 feet tall.
Yeah.
The average range at top golf is 250 yards. So they have some kind of ratio depending on how far their
Distance to height.
distance is. They have to go a certain height for that distance.
I mean, if we were to put something in here, I can't imagine if you capped it at 200 feet, like.
It's a performance standard, so somebody could ask for a variance from it, right?
Right.
And it's a business, they're going to be before you
But
anyways.
they're not gonna,
so
but they're
be
not gonna
notified.
run into our height limit on structures,
It's
right?
not a structure, is it?
It's not really,
A pole that holds a net?
I wouldn't think so.
We usually have exceptions for flagpoles.
I mean, we have exceptions for chimneys and antennas and
Right.
things like that. I don't think this is a structure, so I think it's probably okay. I don't think we have a height limit for flagpoles. I know we don't. I have a giant flagpole. It's like a car dealership flagpole.
Do you mind some input on the golf? I've been to a Top Golf. You do not want a Top Golf in Tiverton. They're enormous structures. They use a smaller footprint. So to compensate for the big hitters, they raise the nets. There's one, I think, in Cranston or Warwick. You can see it for miles around, basically. They're enormously tall. I've been to a couple of them, in one in Atlanta. A better comparison is Caddyshack in Westport on Route 6.
Anybody?
Okay. All right, we'll continue. Dark sky compliance. Excuse me, evidence that the outdoor driving tee or range has a layout that prioritizes maintaining ecologically significant trees as determined by the tree warden and avoids clearing trees. Is that your goal? Is that what you want? Is that too much?
That's good.
Yep.
Evidence that the configuration of the outdoor driving tee is compact, incorporates multi-level tees or shorter physical fairways while using virtual simulations for longer shots. That was to encourage, not to avoid clear cutting,
Yep.
right? The layout of the outdoor driving tee or range shall locate tees and practice areas in and drive into natural clearings to reduce disturbances to vegetation. Yeah? If trees are removed, they shall be replaced in a 3-to-1 ratio with non-invasive, locally adapted trees and plants. Does everyone agree with these? Is it too
Yeah.
much? Is it overreaching?
No, we're good. No one said anything because we're good with it.
Evidence that native drought-tolerant vegetation is used for landscaping with the goal to reduce water demand and to improve biodiversity.
I like the biodiversity thing.
It's not for me. Buffer zones populated with shrubbery and trees shall be created along property boundaries abutting residential zone or residential use. Outdoor driving tee or range shall utilize a drip irrigation system or better, more ecologically efficient system for pinpoint watering and to reduce water waste. Good?
Yep.
As much as possible I know that's not very specific, but we are in performance standards right now, so we can use loosey-goosey.
Yep.
So as much as possible, an outdoor driving tee or range shall use low-impact, eco-friendly synthetic turf if applied, made with non-toxic and recyclable components or materials.
Yep.
So when I was thinking about that, I don't want somebody to clear cut a whole acre of land and then put down
Right.
AstroTurf.
Right. Right.
An outdoor driving tee or range shall submit a maintenance plan that includes eco-friendly pest and weed management program, avoids chemicals harmful to the environment. Good?
Yep.
Good. Mr. Clark, you're good?
I'm good.
Been quiet.
Okay. And
All right, driving on.
moving on.
Marina or boatyard. I changed the outdoor storage for winter when I was doing the commercial marina.
Yep.
I just felt as though this standard was not specific enough.
Okay.
So I've put in the number of vessels stored on land from November 1 to March 31, thus defining the winter or off-season, shall not exceed the aggregate number of dock slips and mooring bays. And then, go ahead, Steve,
Yeah,
please.
does that include indoor storage?
Outdoor, and we can specify that.
Specifies outdoor, because indoor is a big thing these days.
Yep.
It's becoming more and more common.
Stored on land, outside. Number of vessels stored outside on land? Outside on land?
Yeah, that makes it more specific.
But in addition, a lot of marinas are, they make a lot of money from storage, so does this restrict them too much? Or if they want to store more than that, what would be the process to,
Well, they get they can store as many boats on land as they have for number of docks or moorings,
yeah,
right?
I understand, yeah,
If they want more, they can ask for a variance from the board.
that's my point, yes.
I think the reason for that, Steve, is that, there are places, I'm sure you've seen them, where the outdoor storage turns into the great boat graveyard. And eventually you've got a bunch of abandoned vessels that are just there year-round, and we're trying to avoid that. So we want to give people who are operating marinas the opportunity to make money on winter storage because we know they need it without turning it into, the great boat graveyard.
But sometimes you store your boat in an area where you don't necessarily have mooring. You moor it someplace else, but there's no space there, so you're storing it at a marina that does have space.
That's fine,
That's
as long as the marina does not exceed the number of docks or moorings.
And these are performance standards.
Yes.
So they can come ask for more.
They
Yes.
can come ask for more. I mean, I think the other thing that we're trying to prevent, honestly, is somebody taking a piece of, property on the waterfront that has a very small number of slips or docks, but really going into the boat storage business, right? And they've got 10 boats and slips, but they've got 65 boats shrink wrapped in plastic that are there, many of them all year long.
What if you allowed like 25% more? So that for the places that don't store on land, there was space in other places that did, and then it wouldn't become this, like there would be a ceiling on it. You can't have more than 25%, you can't have more than 25% more than the number of slips that you have, and that would give everybody a little bit more space. If there's a concern that we have marinas that don't do storage and these people are gonna be looking for places for their boat. I don't know if that's a problem or a
I think
concern.
I'd be more inclined to have somebody come in and because
ask
this is,
you for
and
the
ask,
variance.
because the marinas that we have today in town are all fine with this. They don't have enough room to store
What they have in
what they
slip
have.
setting. Okay.
So they're okay with this. If somebody comes in and wants to build a new marina and make the case that, listen, I need more winter storage, then they can ask, I think. Anybody? Okay?
All right, so on the flip side, I also included a maximum for summer storage, I guess we'll call it, right? Number of vessels stored on land from April 1 to October 31 shall not exceed 25% of the aggregate number of dock slips and mooring boat buoys. Totally made that number up.
So we're saying only a fourth. If I have 10 slips during the summer month, I can only,
The thing that I worry about that is, some of these marinas have boat sales, right? So they may have things that are out of the water because they're for sale.
Yep.
So I don't know if I mean, most marinas want to get every boat that they have into the water, and they don't want their parking lot filled up with boats that are taking up parking spaces that their marina customers need to use. So I'm not really worried about the summer storage, and I wouldn't want to put somebody who's got a used sales business there, right? And they've got these boats that are for sale, they're trying to sell them, but, the owners don't want to pay to have them launched, and they're not going to unless somebody's going to sea trial them. And so I'm almost of the mind to just stick with the issue of the winter storage and not regulate the summer storage.
In hurricanes.
I agree.
What about just applying the same winter storage to the summer? So there is a thing in place. Like not part of the year, just all year. You
Yeah.
can't.
I don't think it's an
Sue.
issue, and Rosemary, not that anybody's going to enforce this, but Rosemary just made a good point. If you have storms coming and everybody pulls their boats and has to put them in the parking lot, and then, and then they've got to relaunch things. I don't know. I'm just comfortable worried about the winter storage and not worried about the summer storage at all.
So just remove the summer storage altogether.
I would.
Yep. I agree with that.
Is that the consensus?
Because that gives the operators a little more flexibility
Right.
during season to do what they have to do.
Right. And most of them want the parking for their customers
And it's
anyway.
it's the off-season that we're really concerned about.
Yeah. Yep.
Yes.
Jay Gomes. You good? Okay.
Okay, so are we gonna strike that part? Has
going.
everybody agreed? Okay. Okay.
All right.
Next.
Mixed-use complex structure over 40,000 square feet.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm missing. The version that I'm looking at has quite a few more
Yeah.
More
performance standards.
for,
Commercial marina.
that was just a regular marina.
I got you. Thank you.
No problem. Mixed-use complex over 40,000 square feet. We've put in the maximum 200,000 square foot in the highway and PDP zones as you suggested.
Did everyone do their homework and look up buildings?
Oh, yeah, we were supposed to do that. I forgot all about that.
We all feel comfortable with 200,000?
Well,
Can somebody give us an example of what a 200,000?
So Longplex is 170,000, right? Give or take.
Oh, yeah, okay.
We
And then
came to
looked that up
the
at the
conclusion,
last
though,
meeting.
that that's the square footage of the entire building, both levels.
Yeah, correct.
Right.
Correct.
Yep. So 200,000
85.
is pretty darn generous.
I would say
It's
so.
big.
And it's just about all Tiverton can handle.
Well, Longplex is 170 for the aggregate, multiple floors,
Correct.
2 floors?
Well, technically there's,
Is there
yeah,
2 or
there's like
3?
3.
Floors. There's 3.
Okay.
Right, there's
Well,
Because then you're
bottom,
talking
there's
about.
the middle,
right.
and then there's the track level.
so
3 floors.
60,000 square foot footprint.
But that doesn't mean if you allow 200, it can be on 1 floor.
Right.
I don't know, maybe
have the area.
maybe 200's too big.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a big building.
If you have the area, you know, the footprint, I think you're all right.
I don't know, 200's a... What's the square footage what's the footprint of the casino? I'm gonna look right now.
We're gonna have to quiet down the audience pretty soon, I think.
What?
Some over there are a little bit loud.
Can you amend the footprint size? So sure, it's maybe 200,000, but the footprint is limited and it's,
Yeah, you could. This says 85,000, but I'm
For the casino?
not sure that's correct information.
Hang on a second, I'll tell you exactly.
The hotel is,
So if it's 40,000 square feet, and you can go up to 200, that's 5 floors, right?
Yeah, theory.
I will tell you exactly. Property reval card. So, the square footage of the casino is 92,000 square feet.
but that doesn't include the hotel, does it?
Yes, it does. It's that,
Yeah.
it's connected.
Okay. What is other ones?
It's a connected thing. So, yeah, so the casino and the hotel's 92,000 square feet. So maybe 200 is a little bigger than we think. Maybe we stick with something a little
So let me
smaller.
ask you a question. So this says structure over 40,000 square foot footprint, maximum 200,000. I mean, I know this sounds weird, but that means you could have a 200,000 square foot footprint, couldn't you?
Yes.
Mhm, exactly.
And that's what
Okay,
we're
that's
talking
giganga.
about. That's
Yeah,
what we're
that's
talking
why,
about.
that's why maybe 100's the right number.
And again, if someone wants to do something different, they
Could
can
ask
come
for
talk to us and
dimension.
I mean,
pursue
you
it.
can limit the footprint, and then they can use the height limit to go up to that. They're gonna end up with more than
Right.
whatever the footprint is if they do a multi-story building.
Okay,
So we said, what, 180 or so for Longplex, and it's
It was like
3,
170.
I don't, is the third floor of it full, like a full?
It's,
no, the third floor is not full. But that's there.
So donate.
Okay, let's take a poll and pick a number. I'm gonna start over here. Steve Clark.
We're not just gonna be arbitrary about this, we're gonna
I
have,
want you to pick a number that's meaningful, though.
Exactly.
right.
So 200
Trying
might
to
be too
find
big.
you some examples.
You know, I told you that the entire casino building is 92,000. Do you have a number that you feel more comfortable with? If you don't, that's okay.
No, I'm okay with 200,000, it's just,
With the footprint being 200,000 though, Steve?
okay, we're talking footprint,
Footprint, we're talking
just the
footprint.
footprint.
that's a big footprint.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes, so, do we want to change this to do we want to talk footprint here? Do we
That's what we're
want to
talking
about.
Talk square feet.
Footprint.
We can have both, but let's start with the
Let's
footprint.
start with footprint. I think 100 sounds better to me, given the size of the
I agree,
casino.
100.
I go with 100. I think 100 is,
Anybody else
Reasonable.
have a different number?
they
Okay,
can always ask for more.
right, let's go with 100 then. Sam, were you gonna say something?
And I stand corrected, Longplex is 187,000 square feet.
In, of the aggregate of the floors, not the,
Yeah, yes. That is
Okay.
correct.
right, okay.
I mean, based
So
on
you
what
could-
I'm
You
seeing
could build another Longplex.
on the Longplex website.
Without any problem.
Right, okay, let's
If
go
we
with
go with
100.
100.
It
Let's
does
go,
not say.
let's go with 100 for a footprint. We're more comfortable with that.
I'm gonna put the word footprint in.
And
Yes.
that's a pretty big building.
Yes. Yes.
And to just throw something on the other opposite end, I looked up what the size of the Amazon
So did
warehouse
I.
facility, and it said 1.7 million square feet.
Right, that might be a little big for us, so let's.
Yeah,
We'll
again,
stay
that's
away
just
from Amazon.
an example of,
Yeah, okay. Moving on.
Just a second.
Okay. What are we up to next?
Hold on. By right to have a maximum footprint. Okay, so we're only talking about the footprints, we're not worried about,
We have a
Total.
height, we have a standard height limit of
Right.
25 feet. I think that's good.
all right, and then I require parking primarily to the side or rear of the primary structure.
That's good.
Now, commercial marina.
Okay.
Okay. W1 zone, aggregate footprint, no greater than 40,000 square foot, W2, 10,000 square feet. Ed, what did I talk about for consistency on the W1?
So, yep, so it's, so for W1, hotel is 20,000 square feet. Nonprofit organization is 20,000 square feet. Marina, boatyard, aggregate, 10,000 square feet. You want all of them?
The marina though,
No, the marina, 10,000 square feet
in the W1?
in the
Yeah.
W1.
so that's the outlier.
There's a bunch of.
Well, they jump all over the place
Yeah.
between 20 and 10, depending on what it is. So a hotel is 20, a nonprofit organization is 20,000, professional and general office is 20,000, storage, repair, and sale of boats is 10,000, a marina or boatyard is 10,000, a retail business or complex is 20,000, retail sales accessory to the manufacturing aggregate footprint is 10,000, manufacturing, storing, and processing is an aggregate of 10,000.
I'm almost inclined to go with a larger number of 20,000 for all of those uses, for consistency. I think that the lot size is going to really determine what they can do, because we do have setbacks. But I think that some of those 10,000, that may be a tad small for some uses that we do not object to, and that would actually bring some tax revenue into the town. If you're looking for more consistency, I'd almost look at 20,000 as
What was the marina size in the W1?
10.
That can't,
So that's awfully small.
I didn't mess that up.
Yeah, no, that's,
Proposed size,
when
10,000
you're looking
square
at the
feet.
aggregate, if it's an aggregate number,
It does
10,000
say
is-
aggregate in your email.
So then that becomes, that's pretty tight.
There are
And-
three
and
things.
We're looking at, we're looking at least 2 spots in town where people are interested in building marinas. These would not be commercial marinas, they'd be recreational marina or boatyard. But still, I think we need to give them a little more flexibility.
Right now, the things that are limited to 10,000 are the storage, repair, and sale of boats, a marina or a boatyard, and the retail sales accessory to manufacturing, and manufacturing, storing, and processing. You all have those at 10 right now.
Right. I'm actually, I'm actually okay with that in W2.
That's what you have
It's
for W1.
Yeah.
Oh, at 10 in W1?
Yeah.
Oh, that doesn't make any sense.
Yeah,
Then,
it needs to
Wait a minute.
Did we switch them?
I think these are swapped.
Yeah.
I think they're swapped too.
I think
Yeah.
these lists are swapped.
Those lists are swapped, they have to be.
Because
Because,
the
makes
list
more
you have for
sense, yeah.
W2 is all 20 and 40.
Yeah.
So it's got to be the
Yes.
other way around.
yeah,
So those would be for the W2. You have between, it's 10 to 20,000 depending on what the use is.
depending on what the use is. So I looked at for example, the Chase Marina buildings, and that's in total, it's well under the 10,000 square foot limit, right? And I'm not sure if you think about W2 and the sort of residential character that's there, whether or not you want 20,000 square foot marina buildings there or not. Now, if somebody has the right idea, they can always come and ask us, but you're talking about because marina buildings, they're going to be at height because they're tall, because they want to be able to bring boats inside. So I'm actually okay with what we decided before on those, in terms of the size. Understanding that on the right piece of property, somebody can come and ask for dimensional relief. One of the reasons that we actually picked that is we actually, for example, measured the building at Don's Marine to make sure that it would be compliant. And, that's a pretty substantial building, and that's under 10,000 square feet. So I'm actually okay with.
Okay, I'll support that, as long as we switch those numbers so that we get
10,000 in the
waterfront
W2.
one and waterfront too.
It's just
Correct.
in Todd's
My
email
email.
list,
Yeah.
it's wrong,
The
but
email.
in the ordinance, it's correct.
Okay. I feel better.
Excuse me a second. You said Don's Marine is under 10,000 feet, correct?
Yep.
8,500 I think was what we
Yeah.
measured it at.
Okay, but Cumberland Farms, I think we said a few weeks ago, was 1,700?
CVA.
CVS.
CVS is 1,700?
No.
17,000.
17,000.
I'm sorry, 17,000? Okay, that doesn't add up in my brain there. That Don's is less than 10,000.
The structure's on land.
The structure on land, yeah, he
Yeah,
only
I
has
guess-
the structure on
Building.
land.
It's not that big.
Right.
It's got a showroom, and then it's got some storage and some repair
Yeah.
areas, but it's not that big. It's ugly, but it's not that big.
I couldn't, I don't know if I could tell you
You see
exactly.
all those garage doors now.
Do you have an address for-
First one down.
For Don's Marine?
Yeah.
Hang on, I'm getting to it right now. Here it is.
2503 Main Road.
Here's the property card.
This
There's the,
says the first floor is 9,275 square feet.
yeah.
Don's.
It
That's
does.
what this says.
Yeah.
That's what the property valuation card shows.
Yeah, and there's 4 big bays in the front. So I'm okay with the standard that we have, knowing that on the right piece of property, somebody could ask for relief for something
Yeah,
else.
I agree with that. Let's stick with 10.
Okay.
Mr. Taylor, you're good with 10,000 square feet for W2 marina, commercial marina.
Yep. Okay.
What about 40,000 square feet in the W1?
That's fine. That's an industrial area.
Yep.
So you have a mix of 20,000 and 40,000.
But the marina was 40,000.
The
Regular marina was
is
40.
40, yes.
So we're all good?
Yep.
All right.
Okay.
Other than storage of vessels, the storage areas shall first be located in the side yards and shall be set back a minimum of 40 feet from front or corner lot line. Everyone okay with that portion so far?
Yep.
Storage of vessels and traps in the side yard where there is an abutting residential use shall be set back a minimum of 20 feet. Okay?
Yep.
Number of vessels stored on land between November 1 and March 30 shall not exceed the number of docks. And I assume we want to eliminate the summer storage, correct?
Yep.
Yeah, let's do that. But to be consistent, you need to say outdoor land storage.
Thank you. Vessels stored outdoors.
Stored outdoors on land, yeah.
Noise management plan?
That's fine.
Storage and disposal of hazardous waste materials?
Hang on a
compliant-
second.
Oh,
I think you need the second occurrence of the word prolong, which is in parentheses, I think needs to be prolonged. I think it needs an ED on the end of it.
Noise shall be kept. Prolonged, yes, thank you.
And let me ask you a question. Is 30 minutes, I mean, if somebody's running something that's really loud, 30 minutes is a long time. It doesn't sound like a long time, but it can feel
long
like a long
time.
time.
The guy
Is- I
next
mean,
door
is
to me
that a
runs his
standard?
boat on dry land all the time.
Oh, lovely.
Yeah.
Nice.
It's loud and it smells.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
I just
I
put
don't-
something in, so discuss.
I don't know. I think 15
I mean,
minutes.
15,
is-
20.
15 minutes is a better number.
Steve?
I think it's okay. I'm thinking of bottom washing. There's a lot of that goes on at boatyards, which I think generally goes on.
Oh, with the power washer, you mean?
Power washing, bottom
Yeah,
washing, power washing.
Power washing it.
Which generally goes on longer than 30 minutes, I think.
Also, who's going to enforce the 15-minute, you know? I mean, 30
Well, this
gives
is
you-
for, this
I mean,
is,
You call the police.
but that's only for the running of engines or auxiliary generators.
Between 8 PM and 7 AM.
It's not, that's
So this
not
is
gonna regulate
overnight.
someone's pressure washer. This is just gonna keep them from running an engine for a prolonged period of time.
In the overnight hours.
Right, at
Yeah.
night, between 8 PM and 7 AM.
Yeah,
Right.
Okay, I'm good with it.
And I do kind of agree, especially at that time, that 30 minutes is a long time.
It's a long time. Yeah, so let's go with 15.
Steve?
You want to take it down to 15?
Yep.
Yeah.
At that, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, it's
Between
not,
those
It's
hours.
overnight.
It's overnight. I'll go with 15 at that time of night.
yeah.
And it's only an engine or a generator.
Right.
Ari? JG?
Sometimes they start work early.
Well, I was actually going to bring up the hours as well. Like, again, this is not my space, but is 8 PM consistent
Especially in the summer.
when you have daylight till
9
almost 9?
PM and 6 AM.
Well, but what are we talking about for hours of operation here, right?
Did we set hours?
It doesn't say.
We stayed away from
it do-
hours
it
of
doesn't.
operation.
It doesn't have hours of operation, but, you know, even still, right? I mean, should you really be running, you know, your auxiliary generator after 8 PM or, before 7 for longer than 15 minutes? I mean, if you're just going down there to get on your boat, start the engine and leave, I mean, in theory, you should be able to do that in less than 15 minutes, right? I mean, unless your boat's really a train wreck and you've got a
What
lot of
happens if they're
stuff to
working
do,
on it?
But the idea is to sort of minimize the noise for the residential neighborhood that's around, potentially around that area so that they're not disturbed. I think you can do that.
So you had mentioned this, and I just don't know, but the W1 and W2 are, I think, Stu, you'd said one of them is more industrial and one's more residential?
W1
Should we
is
have a different
industrial,
standard
way up-
depending on
way up
which
north
one you're
near Fall
talking about, or
River.
no?
W2 is more.
W1 is only in the far north end of town, like adjacent to the tank farm area. That's the only place we have.
Bay Street.
Yeah.
So does it make a difference in the terms, I mean, I'm with you. If somebody's idling an engine for half an hour, I don't care, 6 AM, that's pretty bloody early. And if you're in a residential area around there, that's really annoying.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering whether we just do it differently for the industrial versus
The
the non.
reality is this is only getting enforced if somebody complains.
Well, I
So
would
they
complain.
would, right, but I'm saying they would have to be blatantly violating this to the point that, it becomes an annoyance and somebody then reports it
Right.
for something to be done about it.
I'm inclined to leave it the way it is. There are residential neighborhoods that abut W1.
Yes.
And again, this is a performance standard that if somebody's, operating a commercial marina, which is designed for commercial boats, needs to come in and say, listen, we have to have permission to start something early. If somebody's going to run if somebody decides to run a ferry and they're going to run it at 5 AM, well, no, I don't. Regardless of what zone it's in, I don't want the neighbors disturbed. I'm okay with it the way it is, knowing that they can ask for relief if they can make a good case.
Yeah, I go with that.
Jay Gomes?
Well, they run into problems that have to be worked on later, and I'm not saying all night long, or they have to start earlier to try to get these boats out. I think a little flexibility in there would make a big difference.
What are you suggesting?
I don't know, maybe if you gave them until 9 o'clock at night and 5:30, 6 AM start.
How's everyone feel?
I'll go along with that compromise.
What about 9 PM and keep it at 7 AM?
Well, I think no one's saying that they can't operate. What we're saying is, and remember, I mean, we think 9 PM in the summertime. This is, these are commercial operations. Some of these people will fish all year long, right? I mean, so this isn't going to have an off season. And at 9 PM in the middle of the winter, especially if you've got school kids that need to be in bed, you might not be crazy about that noise. So we're not saying that they can't do things. We're just saying that you can't sit there running a generator or running an engine for more than 15 minutes. And again, to Ashley's point, that's only if somebody complains. And I don't think somebody's going to complain, at 15 minutes. But when it gets to be 40, that's when they might complain. I do not think this is all that restrictive. I really don't. We're not saying you can't operate things. We're just saying don't be running things that are, don't be running things that are allowed. And,
And that noise still has to go beyond the lot lines, too.
Right. Right. So, I'm okay with it the way it is.
They also don't come in on scheduled times, so that's another thing.
Yeah, and I think the people that live next to those establishments expect that. They have to be reasonable, too.
All right, let's call the question and move on here.
Yeah.
So 8 PM to 7 AM and 15 minutes. We're all good?
Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. The storage and disposal of hazardous waste shall comply with federal, state, local regulations.
Yep,
Yep.
Dark sky compliance,
yep,
screening between the marina and adjacent residential uses,
yep.
combination of, and I took this from the restaurant section, right? Combination of a dense vegetative buffer or a solid fence.
Yep.
The sale of product harvested or caught from the sea, including fish, shellfish, or kelp, shall only occur inside a building with 4 walls and a roof.
What's with the kelp?
What is kelp?
Seaweed.
Seaweed. Seaweed.
Hard to catch it inside a building.
Sell it.
Okay,
Sell it.
I don't know anything about the kelp selling business, so.
I didn't want you to be limited to just fish and sell fish.
I think it's fine too.
Sue and I actually agree on
Because
something.
there are some communities that do,
The harvesting of kelp, I mean, that's a,
the Japanese
that's a
eat
thing,
kelp.
yeah. I don't know how much kelp we have in these waters, but.
Okay,
I mean,
well,
it's-
but what,
We do have kelp.
I know we do.
Edible
but
kelp.
it, okay, in all seriousness though, because I don't know anything about the kelp harvesting business, and I don't know, I'm imagine if you're harvesting kelp commercially, you're not coming in with like, you know, I don't know, 6 bushels of oysters. You are probably coming in with a massive amount of material, right? That's, might be a much bigger operation than we had in mind. Not that I'm opposed to kelp, but I just don't know, I don't know what somebody who commercially harvests kelp.
Could we just say, in order to, I mean, if we say harvested or caught from the sea, that is a blanket statement that would cover us for pretty much anything that you're pulling out of the water. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, you could delete "and kelp" from this and still, in theory, entertain.
You understand, historically, people used to sell seaweed rights.
I know.
Yeah.
But
right?
that
So
was in.
This
but-
is not crazy.
No. I know it's not crazy. But I do know that there is big
Abraham Brown.
commercial harvesting of kelp. So I don't know how big an operation that is, or how much like the loading and unloading period is, as opposed to somebody who's bringing in. We got a big swordfish. You know, we're unloading 1 fish. I don't know if kelp unloading is a much bigger process.
No idea.
Because I can't imagine you're making
I
money
think
bringing 2
there's-
baskets of kelp in.
Well, there's more of this that is happening than I think we would be aware of, as based on my
Yes.
current Google search. And it sounds like it's often paired with shellfish aquaculture, which makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm happy with Bill's idea.
I am too, because Bill's idea covers all of the bases.
It's not really my
And
idea.
again,
The
it's-
words are on the page. I'm just trying to.
Take credit.
Here's my concern, though. If you take out, if you leave fish and shellfish, and eliminate kelp,
It'll be interpreted to mean that it's only
Correct.
shellfish and shellfish.
Okay, so if we just take out the whole thing, as Bill suggested, and say harvested, the sale of product harvested or caught from the sea.
we can do that.
Yes. I'm looking at the Rhode Island Food Policy Council website, and there's a mention of an entity that does kelp farming, and they haul 2,000 pounds out of whack.
In 2016, 9 farms started growing kelp.
In Rhode Island.
Yeah. Yeah, this is the Rhode Island Aquaculture Industry 2016 report.
Okay, is kelp, here's the next question though.
You had no idea
Is
what you
kelp
started.
stored outside before it gets sold?
No
Is it
idea.
dried and stored outside?
I can't, I mean, people are eating it, so
You buy it dry.
Probably have to ice it and
You buy it dry, you buy it dry instead of sheet.
all right, hang on.
Well,
It's kind of like jerky.
Because if you're eating it, I think it's just for lobster.
I think it depends on the net use. It's not all for eating here. It's farming,
It can be
food, feed
fertilizer.
replacement, soil fertilizer, bioplastics.
So it can be
Really?
air dried, dehydrated in a dehydrator, it can be oven dried, it can be sun dried, I mean, you can dry it
I
however.
mean, this is like Forrest Gump. It's like-
I know. Okay, but I'm sorry to be such a stickler about this. I just want to make sure that if you are sun drying kelp outside, that it's not going to smell and the neighbors aren't going to be concerned that it stinks. That's my only question.
But
I mean, it is happening in Rhode Island, so I have to believe that.
But what about, 12
You have something
here?
that says the sale has to happen in a building.
But 12 gets at,
That's the waste.
stored. Oh, that's waste.
That's
So we can
waste.
say,
I'm okay with
Change
this.
that.
I just want to make sure that the kelp doesn't smell and the neighbors aren't going to say this dry. I don't know enough about it. I don't know. Maybe it doesn't smell at all.
Is there anything in here about processing the products? Because that's probably where it's gonna smell, is more than the sale.
we can prohibit processing of,
So why don't you
Of
say
anything
the
harvested.
processing and sale of product harvested or caught from the sea, including blah blah, shall only occur inside a building with 4 walls and a roof.
Yeah, this says that oyster farmers and lobster harvesters grow kelp in the off-season to provide year-round revenue.
Okay, that's much better, processing and sale.
or sale.
So this is from December 19th of 2023, and this is 10 Rhode Island aquaculturists have permits to grow seaweed. There are only 3 active farms.
And they're all here in Tiverton.
I think this covers us. I think, Trish, I think this addresses your concern about making sure that nothing is going on outside.
But you also want to take out the, from this, including fish, shellfish, and kelp, right? You're going to take that out, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm just telling you, this is what it says. When seaweed decomposes, it releases gases that contribute to the sea smell. One of these gases is hydrogen sulfide, which has a very unpleasant odor like rotten eggs. So I just don't want it to smell. That's all.
So we put it inside a building.
In a building. Or you could put language in that says all product must be stored in a building.
Well, I just think if we have inserted processing, and if we delete the phrase including fish, shellfish, and kelp, and we keep it just generic about anything harvested or caught from the sea, I think we're covered on
Yeah,
all of our
agree.
bases.
Yeah,
Yes.
I think
Okay.
that-
Agree. That's much better.
Broad stroke.
All right.
So I also added storage though, Bill. Processing, storage, or sale of product.
Even better.
Good.
Perfect.
Yes, better.
Okay, we're good on that.
We're all good?
I think you're going to take up kelp
Yeah.
farming in your retirement.
Oh, I'm sorry, Ann.
Yeah, that's right.
I do have hours of operation here for unloading of product.
I think that's okay.
J. Gomes, 7 a.m. to 7 p.m.
Again, you're restricting these boats from when they come in. Sometimes they have to get the boats unloaded during the evening and,
Yeah, especially if they've been out for a
Yeah.
couple days.
they have to come in, get the boat unloaded, get it on the truck to wherever it's going.
Load ice and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Huge amounts of ice,
Right.
barrels.
I actually agree with Janice on that. I think that the hours in the fishing industry are crazy.
Right.
I see boats from my house on Mount Hope Bay at all hours, and you can hear them too. And when they come in, they have to offload. They can't wait. I just take the hours out altogether.
Well,
Could I ask a question? This says charters, though. Is that different than like a working
different
fishing
line.
boat? Oh, I'm
Number
sorry, I'm
10.
in the wrong place, okay.
Number 10, hours of
Okay,
operation.
gotcha,
So-
sorry.
so two things. One is, we did hear from, well, let me back up. The whole reason for this definition of a commercial marina, even though they haven't come to the planning board yet, or the town council, is that we understand the DEM has a plan to create a commercial fishing marina at the old Chase building near the bridge, which is plunk in the middle of a residential neighborhood, right? So the reason we're putting these regulations in place now is that at least we have something in place for if and when DEM finally actually brings the plan to us, because they haven't done that yet. The neighbors have raised a concern about having a commercial commercial marina, in an area that has residential properties around it, understandably, and they are concerned about nighttime operations. A lot of bright lights, a lot of noise, a lot of traffic, and that's understandable. So, first things first, if and when DEM comes to us, we need to we're putting these in place right now so that we have something. But when DEM comes to us, depending on what their model is, because we don't know what this is, but in the picture, there's a building that says Rhode Island Seafood on the side of it. If the plan is that they're going to sell seafood there and DEM's going to operate it, is DEM going to have somebody there at 2 o'clock in the morning to unload fish into this? I don't know that they are. So we don't really know. Once we hear the proposal, we can amend this section if we need to, depending on what the business model is and what makes sense. But I am sympathetic to the fact that we're talking essentially about a specific location that, that would be, DEM operates other sorts of marinas. This will be the only one that is not in a essentially highly commercial area. So it's a little odd. So I am somewhat, at least to start with, a bit conservative, I think, about what we grant here for permission, knowing that we could change that if DEM's proposal makes sense. And we're not even sure whether or not, given that this is DEM's marina, whether or not they're going to let people unload in the middle of the night, because it's their building. So who's going to be operating that? I don't know.
So my take on all of that is it's probably better at the onset to have something in place in which to navigate a discussion with, than have nothing, and open yourself up to issues out of the gate.
I'm convinced that that's the way to go. Let's just leave it the way it is.
Right, and if we
and then if it becomes unreasonable, we can change it later.
If they can make a case and we understand that it's not going to be a big disruption, and for the residential uses around there, we can change it, but at least we have something on paper to start with.
What about a compromise of the W1 with different hours than the W2?
Same thing. If somebody proposes that, we can always make that change.
Okay.
I think, but the reality is that commercial fishermen have to get on, depends on where they're fishing. If they're going to George's Bank, and it's more than a one-day trip, they kind of get back when they get back based on weather, success of the catch. Once they're full up, they head back or run out of ice. And it's really hard to set something that is possible for them to comply with. You make that, especially commercial.
I agree with Dick, but I think Tricia made a good point that we need something we need some set of rules to deal with the marina that's being proposed
Right.
in the state. And if that turns out to be unreasonable, we can always change it.
Right.
I think having something in place now, I think is
It
helps
strengthens
us
our-
drive a dialogue around it more proactively
Exactly.
than not having anything in place at all.
Right.
Exactly, exactly.
Okay, so can we agree, at least until, we're going to adopt, we're going to go with this from now until we hear from DEM. I mean, the other thing we don't know is who DEM's target audience may be. It may not be offshore fishermen. This whole marina might be restricted to local Narragansett Bay people. We have to find out, and then we can change it if we need to. Okay. Todd, let's keep going here.
Fishing, sightseeing, or similar charters conducted by a vessel docked at the marina. Those charters may only be operated between the hours of 7 a.m. and 10 p.m.
The charters come,
They go out at like 4 in the morning.
I know.
So if they're running
But-
2 charters a day, they're out
going out
early and
early.
back late.
I understand. I just put placeholders in there.
Yeah, no. I agree.
I kind of think for charters that should be restricted to W1.
I'm just doing some benchmarking. My father-in-law runs a charter service out of Newport, and it's 8 to 12 or 1 to 5 for 2, right? If he's
that
running 2
And we
charters
have-
For
in a
fishing?
day.
And
Yeah.
we have a charter service in the Quacket River behind Bridgeport, behind the old Manchester Seafood. There's a charter boat there. There's at least one
Yeah.
charter fisherman there.
All of that to say, I think 7 to 10 is a reasonable.
I think 6 is better.
I don't know, same thing. I'm thinking.
Have it in, and
I'm thinking, depending on the size of the charter boat, because again, we don't know how big this marina is going to be. On Riverside Drive, do you want a whole bunch of people coming in off a charter boat at 10 a.m. and at 10 p.m.?
And if you're restricting commercial fishing to
Yeah.
7 to 7,
I think that the charter operation should be the same hours.
And you have the
Okay.
private trailers down there too, if it's really commercial.
I'll go with that.
But I'd make it the same hours.
is that the consensus,
Yep.
Mr.
Yeah.
Clark? You were ready for me at that time, huh? Let's skip you next time. Waste from product caught or harvested from the sea shall only be stored inside a building or in airtight containment system, which shall prevent odor or attraction of pests, shall not be kept on the property for greater than 5 days.
Yep.
Ari,
That's a
good.
long time
It's a
to
long
keep
time.
fish.
tell me what you want.
Don't eat that fish.
It's waste product, that's what it says.
They pick up at 4 in the morning now.
Do you want less than 5 days?
Yeah,
What do you want, Ari?
3 days.
Stu, 3 days for storage of waste product?
Mary wants 3 days.
3 days.
Well, but if it's in an airtight container
Or in the building.
or in the building, I mean, here's the only other thing. Remember, a lot of these dumpster companies come early. Same thing in that neighborhood. Do you really want to have every 3 days that the dumpster comes and crash?
They come at 4 o'clock now.
Well, exactly. So I would opt for, I mean, they're running a business. If it smells,
yeah, I feel like people are self-regulating on this one.
yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
"Ooh, I want to try to stretch this.
As long
for-"
as it's in an airtight, if it's outside and it's in an airtight container, it's not going to smell. So
All I've heard in the past years here is it's Tiverton, right? And you never know what people will do in Tiverton.
well, then,
Right?
if it's not.
Where's my t-shirt, Ashley?
Yes, remember the big, the quahog shell?
Exactly.
Yeah. The
You
glass.
guys have a story
Foot deep
for
in the
everything that
driveways.
everybody's done something.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
I just think we can let them sort that one. The number of days we can let them sort it out. If it smells, then they're in violation.
Okay.
So you're keeping it at 5.
I just take it out.
Or just take out the 5 days,
Yeah.
but keep in the language about the storage and
And then
the
it has to
smell.
be inside or in an airtight container.
You know, I'm not sure being inside a building solves the problem.
It still can smell.
Yeah, they can open up the windows, they can turn on the ventilation system, you know, fish processing plants
Stink.
smell. So are we going to satisfy what we're trying to do here by saying just keep it in the building? Do we need to go further? Or have we
It does
not?
say which shall prevent odor or attraction of pests.
Right.
Yeah.
Do you need to add that to the last thing you were talking about, being indoors, processing of the kelp, that whole thing? Does that need to be the same, where we prevent the odor?
It would all be covered under
At
the
the top,
same
we
thing.
had processing, storage,
Yeah, with the
or
odor.
sale.
She
Inside.
means the language that's specific to the odor.
To the odor. 'Cause they
That
put on
shall
their
not create
ventilation
odor
and
or
kelp
attract
drying
pests.
room.
For the kelp? I think, were you talking about?
Other than waste
Yeah.
product is what you mean. Okay.
Yeah, we're only referring to the waste product being stored properly and not making a smell, but what about the actual product?
And the process.
Not just the waste?
Didn't I just, that wasn't what I was talking about before?
Yeah, but that was the point that was being made, was that that wording is only under waste, and it should be
For everything.
for everything.
Okay, we can just amend that one section.
But if they're fishing boats, I don't care what they bring in. what
They're
they
gonna
take
stink a
off, They're
little,
gonna
yeah.
smell.
But again, this is gonna have to be something that somebody would complain about in order to create an enforcement action. So
Yeah.
the smell would have to be
And-
like obnoxious
Yes.
smell that
And-
bothers people to the
Yeah,
point
and-
that they complain.
Yeah, and honestly, with the amount of sea breeze that we have here, you know, things are, for the most
The
part.
smell comes and
It
goes
comes and goes, you know?
with the wind.
That's why you live by the water.
Right, that's exactly why you live by the water. So I don't think the fact that there are fishing boats in the marina is gonna be a problem. I think it's more like
that right?
nobody wants a dumpster full of.
Storage
you
of
know,
product? I had
Fish carcass. Okay,
I think to make it consistent, it's
storage of product,
Processing, right?
caught,
or harvested. Shall only be stored inside a building.
all right.
Hold on, Trish.
is it caught or harvested and processed from the city? I don't know, I'm just trying to make it consistent
Storage
with
and process, I think is you're right.
Storage.
storage.
Storage and processing of product caught or harvested.
There we go.
Okay.
Okay,
And we're eliminating the 5 days?
yep.
Well, if you get rid of the 5 days, the last part of that sentence sort of,
Shall prevent odor or
yeah,
attraction
sort
of
of
pests.
gets shot in the foot there.
Well, it'll tell you that you can only be stored inside a building or in an airtight containment system, which shall prevent odor or attraction of pests, period.
Period, right, okay.
You're okay?
Okay.
You can always tell we're getting later into the meeting by the number of people it takes to,
But it's some,
I know.
Change that sentence.
And we're getting a little bogged down here, and we still have a number of things to get through on the agenda, so we gotta move
sooner or
along.
later, you have to open that containment. And
Right,
it's not gonna be better because it's been in there for 5 days or 7 days.
All right, idling of delivery trucks restricted to time necessary to load or unload cargo.
good.
yep.
While docked, vessels must be fully rigged and meet all applicable requirements for the vessel's permit.
Good.
While docked, vessels shall be maintained in working condition.
Can we enforce that?
It's like a junk car.
Okay. Okay.
Repair work performed on vessels while docked must be accomplished in a manner to avoid interference with other users.
Yep.
Welding similar hot work must first receive a permit.
Yep.
Bait shall be stored properly and covered on board the vessel and in a manner that shall prevent odor or attraction of pests. And again, we have the 5 days, but do you want that or not?
You can take that out, because there are people who can keep live bait alive longer than 5 days.
Lobster and other trapped storage,
Yep.
only allowed on vessels with a dock, only allowed for vessels with a dock at the marina.
Yep.
Does not include storage of rope, buoys, and other repair materials, stacked neat and orderly, only permitted between November 1 and March 31. I don't know if that's reasonable.
I have no idea when lobster season.
I think this is one of those things where if it's a problem, DEM's gonna let us know.
Frankly,
On land.
those seasons are shifting anyway because of warming.
Yep.
June to December. Primary lobster fishing season runs from June to December.
Okay. So, only permitted between January,
And May 31.
May 30th.
Okay.
no one is permitted to live either temporarily or permanently aboard a vessel. Discharge into the water is prohibited. Fueling at the dock, we're eliminating that, correct?
Correct.
Yeah, although discharges, that, I mean, that's CRMC purview, but it's not ours.
That's okay. Parking,
Now, wait a minute, hold on. You
Yeah.
say discharge,
yeah.
what are we talking about? Like bilge water, like oil and stuff, or are we talking about human waste or both?
Good point. I took it from some other community.
First of both.
Or engine cooling water.
Right,
Get
I mean-
cycled.
I mean, all of that is controlled by CRMC and DEM.
Well, that's like the season dates that we're putting, should be the allowed season. I would think that's set, that changes. Like freshwater fishing or whatever DEM decides it's gonna be that year.
I mean, would we make reference to CMRC or?
I was going to say for
Just eliminate
21, we could say discharge into the water must be consistent with state regulation, with the appropriate state regulations, whether it's DEM, CRMC, or anybody else. And that's kind of a no-brainer, but it doesn't hurt to have it in there, just to remind people that there are such.
So I do think that it is. I mean, I know that they can close the season for reasons. I don't know if it regularly shifts.
The lobster season.
Yeah.
Maybe we
What
should
I'm
just take
finding
that out
says that
altogether.
it generally is caught from late June to December.
Maybe we should just take those dates out altogether,
Yeah.
because the state regulates that. Just take it out.
Yeah.
There could be times when they may want to bring their pots in because of storms or whatever, so on.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think,
just
I
take
think
it.
I would
Too
take
much
that out.
control here.
Does everyone agree?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. I'd actually take the discharge thing out because that's like, and then we should take the fueling at the dock and put that
Fueling's out already.
out.
Discharge out, everyone?
Yep.
Yeah. It's not a municipal regulation, it's a state regulation. It's not our business.
Anything
Well, we
else?
should Tricia, we should comment about the fueling at the dock.
Then we
It's
should
out.
just take that out.
Take it out.
It's out. Prohibition, because the definition permits fueling.
And you're taking out the storage, right, of pots?
Yes.
Okay.
And I would take the discharge out because
That's gone.
not our thing. The parking I'm good with, although I also think that we should add that there is a required parking buffer between any commercial marina parking lot and a residential use? Because based on what I know about that plan down there, potentially, there is some sort of plan for a parking area that's abuts residential use.
Okay,
So I
so,
think there should be a,
but we already talked about buffers up here.
but would that cover the parking lot? Because the way this is sort of designed, the parking lot is not, is.
You said the
it's-
parking has to be on the side and rear?
Yeah.
Right, except in this particular application, the parking is like diagonally across the street.
It's very narrow on the south side, but on the north side is.
Right, but from what I've seen of this plan, the parking isn't actually on that lot. It's on another piece of property that the state owns diagonally across the street. So I would just like some language that covers that.
You're okay with one parking spot per 2 boat slips?
I don't know. Steve, do you have an opinion on it? Like,
I saw our community had 1 per 4 slips, and I thought that was
that seems
unreasonable.
excessive.
No, not enough.
Well, remember, this is a minimum.
Right.
They can have more if they want.
Yeah, okay.
This is the minimum they would be required to have.
So we're good with that?
Yeah, I think if that's the minimum, they could get to a 1-to-1 ratio or,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Seems like we ought to use 1.5, or we would for, if it was
You're gonna make us do that type of math, Dick?
as apartments or whatever.
I say we keep it as.
You know,
I say
because
we
most
keep-
people, there's going to be more than one person going out.
Yeah, but they're gonna put in the amount of parking that they think they're gonna need to serve their customers, and this is your minimum. So if they think they need 1.5, they're gonna come in with a plan for 1.5. If they think they need 5, they'll come in with that, and we'll review it.
But actually, I think Dick's onto something. I think we should make it, we can always change this. I would make it 2, because, I mean, you have the occasional guys, the scholars, whoever, who go out by themselves, but a lot of these boats go out with crew. So, and they don't necessarily come together. I think there should be 2 persons. I think there should be 2 per slip. And they can always ask for an amendment to that if their model is such that, listen, all we've got are scholars that are going out by themselves.
So basically, you're saying flip this from 1 parking space per 2 boat slips to 2 parking spots per 1 boat slip.
Yeah. That's my suggestion.
I'll go along with that.
Okay, is that what everyone wants?
Yep. Okay. Next. What are we up to next?
I have a question.
Hold on.
Yes,
Okay.
Rosemary.
Wholesale business and storage, non-inflammable. Todd, why did you change the PDP zones?
You have
put
to
in
wait.
zones plural rather than zone.
Oh, hold on.
Okay.
I was typing there.
Yeah,
Just trying to stick with you.
just go back.
Excuse me.
Go back. Singular boat slip.
Thank you.
Should be just one.
What's that?
Maybe just one.
Rosemary wanted my
Correction.
attention, so,
I'm sorry.
no,
Okay.
that's fine.
Let's get this finished because we still have a lot of stuff to do.
All right, so we're done with the commercial marinas now?
Okay?
Wholesale marina, or wholesale business?
Why do we stipulate that parking shall not be located below the ordinary high water level? Isn't that kind of common sense that you're not going to
One would
build
think,
a
Dick,
parking
but
lot below?
this is what we said earlier, right? Stole it from another community for the brain trust chair to decide, not me.
It can't hurt.
At least we don't have a whole center shell here.
Well, if you build a dike,
Well, listen, that's a good point, because, before we renovated Grinnell's, we had people who would literally drive their trucks, their pickup trucks, back them into the ocean, so the rear wheels were in the water, and then fish off the tailgate, so maybe we need that rule. Okay, where are we, Todd?
Are we good?
Yes,
That's it?
we're good.
Sure.
Okay.
Good, let's move on.
Yep.
Question on the next
Yes, Rosemary. Number 3?
paragraph.
Yes.
Wholesale business. Why did you change PDP and put zones, plural, rather than
Because it's
zone?
highway, commercial, industrial, and PDP zones.
Yes.
The word
Only one
zones,
PDP.
yeah, but it applies to all the zones listed.
You're right.
You are off the grammar patrol.
Yes.
One mistake and she's done?
You're
After how
done.
many years? You got one mistake and he kicked you off.
Yep, you're done.
Wow, Todd.
Janice is my go-to girl.
Okay. All right, what's next?
Retail outlet accessory to a wholesale or storage use.
Yep.
I think I changed the numbers as you wanted.
Yep.
So aggregate, 20,000 square foot,
Yep.
okay? We're good.
Yep. Okay.
That's it, folks.
Okay, awesome.
Nice
All right.
work.
One,
Nice job, Todd.
Thank you.
very good job. Now, I do want to check though with Ed, the inconsistencies. Do we have a bunch of inconsistencies in that?
Well, we
Email.
talked about them.
All of them? Did we cover all of them?
We did.
Okay, good. All right, so we're good on this. Are we ready to take a vote on this?
Yes, please.
Okay.
So I would move approving all of the amendments that we have made tonight to the performance standards section.
Well, I think
Well,
it's
the whole
everything,
thing,
the whole
the whole
It's the
document.
whole document.
definitions,
Okay.
use table.
Oh, everything, okay.
Performance
Yeah.
standards.
And all, I would move then to approve all of the amendments that we have made tonight to the entire Appendix A zoning ordinance.
Second.
There's this motion and a second. Any further discussion? And hang on a second, would you be willing to amend your ordinance to include that we are recommending these to the council for adoption?
Because they are
Yes.
consistent with comprehensive plan.
Yes, that they are consistent with the comprehensive plan
And
and that
traffic
we are,
study.
and that we are recommending them to town council
For adoption.
for adoption.
Awesome. Okay, so there's a motion. Did I have a second?
Dick
Second.
seconded.
Dick second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Abstaining. I was in all of the meetings and I got it, yeah.
Well, okay, you can abstain, Rosemary, but you didn't get, we had most of this at the last meeting, but,
I agree, but I wasn't.
okay. And so Rosemary's abstaining. Janice?
No.
Janice is a no.
The abstention goes with the majority, so that's Robert's rule.
All right, so next on our agenda,
We'll still mark it as an abstention, but
Seven, but it's 7-4.
7-4. Just do it like you usually do.
Okay,
Right?
thank you.
okay. Yard regulations and accessory structures, we're still not ready on those. We reviewed them at the last meeting. We'll talk about them more when we get to the residential zone. Park Block, we did those. Accessory dwelling units, we talked about those last time. I think we're,
We talked about that a little bit today, where we feel like the best approach, because we have to be careful how we regulate accessory structures in conjunction with how we regulate accessory dwelling units, because of the way the law is written, we shouldn't do those independent of each other. So we will work on pulling together a structure for accessories, a way of setting it up for accessory structures. And then we will look at a draft of an accessory dwelling unit ordinance based on the state law, and Todd and I will kind of go back and forth and make sure that we are adhering to the law, which basically says that you cannot regulate an ADU more restrictively than you were to regulate an accessory structure. So our goal will be to kind of do it the other way, because the law won't allow us to do it that way. So we should do them together, and we should lay them out together and be able to kind of look at them together to make sure that, because the law essentially treats these the same way that they treat a shed, we can't regulate independent of each other. We have to structure this together. So Todd and I will work on that and bring you a draft.
Okay.
All right.
And you will also address if there's infrastructure in place in these zones, and will there be a mechanism with the building official's office, a listing?
I'm not sure I understand what you're asking, Rosemary.
If an ADU is issued,
Yep.
is infrastructure taken into consideration, water and sewage?
Not
Well, they-
allowed to.
Not water, but septic,
Go ahead.
yes.
You're not allowed to specifically like regulate for it, but they can't issue a building permit for a dwelling unit that doesn't have a proper connection for those. So somebody who comes in for an ADU is either going to have an OWTS that has room for the 1 or 2 bedrooms that they're allowed to put in it, or they have to do a system upgrade, or they'll have to install a new OWTS to treat that particular unit. And they can't issue a certificate of occupancy without that. So you can't occupy the unit without the proper connection to utility. But we can't put anything specifically into the ordinance to regulate it any differently than you would if you were just building a house and coming to get a building permit, which they have to prove there upon a certificate of occupancy that they're either connected to water sewer or they're connected to well septic, appropriately connected. So there's nothing else we can do.
Although, Ashley, I think and this is state law, you can't get a building permit to add a bedroom if you already have 3 bedrooms.
Yes.
And you only have a 3-bedroom
Yes.
septic permitted by DEM. But
Yes.
we could put language in there that just sort of references that, so somebody who's thinking about building an ADU
Is aware that it's there.
is aware that if you have a 3-bedroom septic and you already have 3 bedrooms, you can't just add on an ADU. So we can put some language in there that reminds people.
Yes, you just can't put in any language that tries to regulate it any differently, but you can remind people that there's a requirement for
Just so
that.
there's clarification, because there are some.
I'm sure,
I think
yes.
it's really important to
Yeah,
put it in
and
there
we
because it
actually
reminds
talked about-
everybody.
We actually talked about that specifically at the last meeting when we talked about ADUs. So that, we can put that
We
in.
need the mechanism and the clarifications, very important.
Right. So I think we're good on that. So we're going to wait on the ADUs a little bit. We're going to stay on top of that. We're good on the special, we don't have any special use permit additions. We've taken our vote, okay. Amendment to the zoning article, 21, low to moderate income housing, discussion and vote. I'm not sure.
I don't know.
What about B? We skipped over B. Agenda item B, recommendations to town council for legislative amendments related to land use.
You know what,
and
that,
regs.
B and C are,
They're sort of together.
yeah, okay. So, as you know, we presented to the council the planning board's findings and regarding comprehensive permits at the council's last meeting. And so I think it was a good educational experience for everybody, both members of the council as well as people who are watching who understand what these comprehensive permit laws are about and how they're affecting Tiverton. our state legislators have indicated their willingness, their understanding of these issues, and their willingness to look for solutions and possible amendments and tweaks to the law as it exists today. So we committed to the council that we would have for them a list of suggested modifications to the comprehensive permit laws that would be presented to our legislators, although they've actually already asked for them because they are aware of some of the trials and tribulations that we're having. So we need to think about what we would like to see amended in Chapter 53, the comprehensive permit law, and make recommendations to the council and the legislators. I took a stab at a list of things. I have a couple of other recommendations that I'm adding to my list. I'm assuming everybody has a copy of that list. It was in your packet. And I don't know if people have others as well. I know that Ashley has some. We're gonna, I think for this tranche, try and focus on things that really relate to comprehensive permits. So
I had a couple.
Okay. So why don't we start with, if it's okay, we'll start with,
Do you want to walk through?
yeah, the first list. I'm just bringing this up here so I have it in front of me. Okay. So the first one is an amendment to Chapter 42, which is a different chapter. And the reason that I've called out the chapter numbers, you won't find this in Chapter 53, it's in Chapter 42. And that is that a municipality can receive a half a unit credit towards its affordable housing requirement for manufactured, or what some people think of as mobile homes, provided they meet certain criteria. And that includes they have to have been built after 1976, it has to be a primary residence, and the land on which the unit sits must either be owned by the same individual who owns the unit, in other words, by the homeowner, or the land is owned by a homeowners association. There is no requirement whatsoever for homeowners who do anything in this. Their property doesn't become deed restricted. They don't have to sign anything. They don't have to do anything. The municipality is just allowed to count a half a unit credit. Because of the way that the law is written, Country View is excluded, because while Country View has a homeowners association that covers sort of the operation of the community, the land on which it sits is actually owned by a third party. It's owned by Hometown America. However, there's a 99-year land lease on it. So excluding that doesn't really make any sense. So the first thing that we're going to ask is that they amend that law to allow Country View, or places like Country View where there's a land lease in excess of 30 years, because that's the minimum, so they could be included for half unit credit. Comments, suggestions, anybody?
Wonderful idea.
Okay.
Is this unique to Tiverton, or do other towns have a similar problem?
More and
Other
more
towns have a
are gonna
similar
have it.
problem, because the only manufactured homes that can count are those parts that have been essentially bought out by the people who live there.
Yeah, so
So
other
Ed-
towns have country
yes.
views.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think you should get a full credit. I mean, a housing unit's a housing unit if it's got a,
So the reason you're only getting a half a credit is because there's no, in the model they have, there's no deed restriction, and there's no there's no income qualifying, so they're not and I'm not arguing one way or the other, I'm just, they're not giving you a full credit because it's not gonna, you're not gonna check those boxes with those units, which are not they're not the same as the ones that are coming through as affordable units through say a comprehensive permit or inclusionary zoning or some other mechanism. So they're kind of they're halfway there, but they're not all the way there. So I believe that's the logic behind not giving a full credit. They're what's called naturally occurring affordable housing most of the time, but there is no mechanism in place to ensure that they stay affordable, which is the missing piece, which is why you're only getting a half credit.
Right. The second thing, Rhode Island Housing, which keeps track of the amount of affordable housing a community has, only updates that count once a year. And as a municipality, you're stuck with the count that they have, regardless of whether or not you've added new units. So since ours was counted, the Solara building opened at Boar Mill. And we are in this project about doing a review of our existing manufactured homes that the town's undertaken separate from Country View because we can get a credit for them. So we think that Rhode Island Housing, there's only 39 communities. How hard can it be?
By the way, we have to report to them.
Right.
So they're getting their information from the municipality. So the minute they send you a form, you fill out the form, you send the form back.
So it's really us doing the.
Right, but we'd like them to update their count twice a year at least.
Makes sense.
How about the other one? I mean, you talked about Country View, but what about Dodson and?
We can get half a unit.
Half there too?
We can get a half a unit credit there for the units that meet the criteria, which includes manufacturer after 1976 or 1976 or later.
Because there would be three other ones.
Yes,
Okay, we're well aware of that, okay.
Yeah, there's, I told the chief I would go through them and that entire stack of papers on top of the mailbox over there, that's my job tomorrow. The next one has to do with density, and there are a couple of ways that we can look at this, but I think that there is a general agreement that the prescribed density bonuses in the law are unrealistic for a community that has limited public water and limited public sewer, no aquifers, and some of the poorest soil in the state for septic systems. So we could make a stab at recommending to our legislators that the density bonuses need to be halved. We could make a recommendation that says they should go away completely. Or we could look at things like in places where you don't have public sewer, which is really a serious concern in terms of protecting groundwater, that you not only exclude the wetlands, but you exclude any land that is hydric, predominantly hydric, or has a seasonal high water table from the buildable land calculation, which would reduce the density, at least in those areas. I mean, we can ask for the moon. On the other hand, we might not get it. So maybe it's good to ask for more than one thing and hope that we get some of it. I don't know.
I support this one.
Yeah, no, and I think it's awfully hard to argue against what you're asking for.
Well, that's number 3. But the bigger question is then, do we say, we think that the density bonuses everywhere should be half? They're just too big.
No, that's arbitrary.
They don't belong in state law.
They don't belong in state law.
That's, I mean, I know we have to talk about what we think is realistic, and which is, why the Planners Association maybe hasn't made some of these requests or suggested them, because we realize the landscape that we're working in, but I want you to all work from the baseline understanding that the state should not mandate density in a uniform way like this that has no relationship to the ground whatsoever. They're basically, in this provision, it says that if I can connect to water and I'm giving you 25% affordable, I get 3 units per acre. By the way, if I can't connect to water or sewer, I still get 3 units per acre. which is an average of like 14,000 square feet per unit, which is higher than DEM's kind of unwritten rule of like you need about 20,000 of good land to put a well and a septic together safely. So I don't know why we're putting, there's no relationship to reality whatsoever. The density bonus that you get in a district that requires 1 acre of land per unit is the same density bonus that you get in where you're requiring 2.75 acres of land per unit. It has no relationship to reality whatsoever. It just sits up there in the air and and then it gets plucked down and applied to land that is not comparable at all.
So what Tricia is suggesting is that we link the density
At
to the
least to
condition
soil.
of the soil. And that's awfully hard to argue against.
I agree with Stu.
And I think that's a very reasonable thing to ask our legislators, because they're going to have to defend this to their colleagues in committee and then on the floor of the House or the Senate.
But why not try to go for the moonshot, if you will, right?
This is what I'm asking.
Like, I do think even if it is not acted upon, I think it is important for the record, for optics, for a lot of different reasons to have that as a stated request, because it takes away our ability as individual communities, and here in Tiverton, to do what's best and manage that ourselves. I get the intent, but
It's a great intent, but mathematically, you can't get there.
it's what's the word I'm looking for late on a Tuesday? It is, you just can't do that. You can't make a blanket thing for 39 cities and towns with no regard for the uniqueness of each community and its comp plan and its zoning. Yeah, you can't have a one size fits all.
I mean, it's even worse than that. It's within your own community. Like, we're not even taking the fact that you've zoned particular areas of town for particular reasons and using that as the baseline. It doesn't matter.
Yeah,
it's
because
the same density bonus,
regardless
east,
of
west, north, south, where
Yep.
it doesn't matter where you
Yeah.
are. So even within your own community, it's inconsistent.
Yep. So I would suggest we do both and, right? Like, I think you put number 3 in there as is, and you add another one. That's the moonshot.
Okay, so what are we asking for? How are we phrasing this?
I'll go along with Bill's recommendation.
Are you suggesting that you would actually propose it both ways?
These are your suggestions to your state representatives.
Right.
Let them decide their strategy.
Yeah.
Exactly. They know it.
I mean, you can
They
tell
know the
them
situation.
ultimately.
What do you mean by both? I'm
Well,
sorry, I'm
you
not
could-
tracking.
I mean, you're like, to Todd's point, you're making recommendations to them. You could say, our preference is that there is no density mandate in the law. It doesn't belong here, and here are the reasons why. But if you can't sell that,
Here's the fallback.
here's our fallback position
Yep.
that we feel like we could live with, that at least does try to make some connection between what's happening on the ground and the density bonus that you're applying to that ground.
Yep.
That's excellent.
Yep.
And then they make the decision.
And then they make they read the room and they choose
know
what
their
they
col-
think
they
they
know their
can.
colleagues.
Right.
We don't.
Okay, so we're gonna propose both, that a municipality be allowed to set its own density bonuses.
That's our preference.
That's
But
You lead with that.
We're gonna lead with that. But we're also going to recommend that, if we're not going to be allowed to, that we are gonna link density to the condition of the soil, and you would exclude not just wetlands, although, but you would include any hydric, primarily hydric or seasonal high water table land from the buildable land calculation. Okay. Number 4, and I don't know what the number is, but for any development in excess of some number of units, you have to have 2 egress points, and not one of them may be more than a public road accepted by the municipality solely to serve an adjacent development. It does not make sense to me to have a development of 100 or 200 units and have one driveway in and out. And I think that choosing to use only, for lack of a better description, side roads, right, that were only accepted as public roads because they were an egress in and out of a subdivision doesn't make any sense. So at least one of these has to be on a main road. Because I just think that that's a congestion disaster.
I agree with it. I don't know what the right number is. My inclination is to have as low a number as passes sort of a general litmus test.
So I'm gonna play devil's advocate here and offer you my immediate concern in listening to this conversation is if you're not gonna do it for conventional subdivisions of that size, why are we doing it for a comprehensive permit?
Fair enough. We could.
I'm not saying you shouldn't, I'm just saying keep that in mind. I think what we're talking about on the other side of it, like the hydric soils and the high density, that's an add-on that they're getting that somebody else is not getting. But if we're talking about 100 units is not safe for one exit, then it doesn't matter how you got there. 100 units is not safe for one exit, regardless.
But you're saying we don't have that. That sort of limiting factor is not in place for a
And what I might
non-comp permit.
suggest that the law is instead is that if the municipality requires a certain number of egress per number of units, that is not something they're required to waive
Okay.
For a comp permit.
for a comp permit.
Yep.
Yep.
I would
Okay.
prefer to hear it worded that way, because I think that's fair. You wouldn't waive it for a conventional subdivision, and if it is truly a safety concern, then it shouldn't be waived for anybody.
Yep. Okay.
But then, of course, we still have the problem with the applicant coming in with a traffic engineer who will say everything is just fine and dandy. So,
Can't stop those traffic engineers from saying that.
no, you can't. It's a fraternity.
It's also a fire
So-
marshal opinion.
It is, and sitting and listening at the TRC to unnamed applications I will not specify, it is not a requirement to have 2 means of egress.
No.
It's not a fire requirement.
Okay, so we're.
Go with it, go
So
with it.
we're comfortable with the idea of adding language that said, if a municipality has requirements regarding egress over X number of units, they can be waived for a comprehensive permit. Okay. Number 5. Since 25% is the sweet spot, right? That is the point. If you do 25% affordable, that is the most profitable application of the formula, right? So why would anybody do anything else? But at 25%, you're never gonna get to 10%. It's like the faster you run, the behind you get. So here's another idea at municipalities that are at less than 10%, you can require a developer to do 50% affordable.
I like that idea very much. And it's awfully hard for a politician to say that's a bad idea. Because they're claiming that this is all about affordable housing. Well, if it's all about affordable
Janice,
housing.
Rosemary?
No, I think it's good.
Janice is shaking her head. Good.
Because right now, we do not have, we can recommend, as I did the other day, that they go higher than 25%. But we can't require it. We do not have that power,
Right.
as I understand it.
But I think if you're at less than 10%, then you should be able to
Then
do
we
that,
should,
because otherwise you're
we
never
should have that
going to
discretion.
get there.
Absolutely.
Again, I'm just for a minute gonna play devil's advocate, and I'm not saying these things because I necessarily agree with them. I'm jumping, my head is jumping down the road to the arguments I think you're gonna hear about. So I just offer this for consideration. I mean, I think the argument you're going to hear is that those applications are not financially feasible at 50% without an increased density of market rate units. And they're not gonna make people do that. I think that's gonna be the first argument you hear back, is at 50%, it's not financially feasible.
Could we again leave this to the discretion of our state delegation and suggest an increase above 25%? I'd love to see it at 50%, but maybe politically that's not doable, but maybe another 5% would be doable, or another 10% to 35%. Of the
Yeah,
units
I mean,
being affordable.
We've long
Let's-
argued that the 25% is not meaningful.
Let's tell our state legislators that the 25% is never going to get us where we want to be, and that we should have, and that town should have some discretion to incrementally increase the 25% threshold to 30%, 35%, and then let them take it from there. Because I think they understand. We could explain the mathematical situation to them, where, yeah, we're getting more affordable, but then we're getting a huge new addition to the total number of units in the town of Tiverton. So, and let them handle it.
Wouldn't that be in the best interest of the state as well?
It's in the best interest of the people who need the affordable housing. So we're the good guys. We're speaking up for the people who need it.
Well, I don't know where to Ashley's point, I don't know exactly where the profit margin is on this, but I am relatively sure that at 25%, looking at the number of bonus units these developers are getting, that the profit margin is substantial.
I don't disagree with you, and I don't know that any of us truly know what the financials of these are, despite the fact that they're supposed to submit a pro forma.
Which could be pure fiction.
I believe that is the pushback you will hear. Whether it's true or not I'm not debating that. I'm just
I'd rather
telling
go in high and fall back, right? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Go in with the 50 and let someone else figure out where the line in the sand between affordability or profitability is. But I think it sends a message, not only because it's never gonna, anything at 25% is going to sort of perpetuate our journey here to achieve 10%. But I think it also perpetuates a size and scale of development that can have irreparable harm to sort of what remains of our sort of undeveloped community.
And totally inconsistent with our
Comp
comprehensive plan.
Absolutely.
And I'll go along with Bill on that, but again, it's.
I totally hear you. I totally hear you.
I'm not saying these things to persuade you I just want you to, I think that's what you'll hear if we suggest it, and I just want to bring it up for sake of conversation while you're talking about it.
Yeah.
Not that I'm trying to lead you in one direction or the other. I think you're on the right track with that kind of approach.
In corporate speak, you're pressure testing. So.
Okay. I don't know exactly what the testing is, but where a comprehensive permit development is putting in either individual wells or a community well on the property, that a municipality has the ability to require additional testing to ensure surrounding wells will not be negatively impacted. Because we don't want somebody to come in and put in a big community well or, 27 or 30 wells, and the next thing you know, the neighborhood to the north and to the south is essentially dewatered. We would need guidance from probably Ashley's firm in terms of what kinds of tests, But I would like the law to allow us to be able to require that specifically to make sure you're not dewatering the whole neighborhood.
So can I raise this? So you're coming at this through the lens of water quantity and availability, but why not add not only where a public well is required, but where an OWTS is required, and it gets at the quality of the water that's in the surrounding area as well.
So I think the issue with that is this. DEM has complete and total purview over OWTS permitting.
Yep.
And we can't, we have no jurisdiction and no ability, and this has been established by case law, we have no ability to add any additional restrictions on regarding OWTS systems. What I will tell you is one of my extra things that I thought up here is that DEM also right now has not promulgated any regulations for any of these comprehensive permit units or developments that have, you know, an unlimited number of septic systems on them or one large one. That just doesn't exist in their regulatory.
It's not a use case.
Yeah, right? So this is another thing, is that frankly, the General Assembly should require that DEM promulgate regulations that specifically address nitrogen loading and, you know, and essentially contamination of surrounding drinking water supplies, whether it's groundwater, surface water, or people's wells, for these kinds of applications, because they have nothing on the books to deal with this.
Yeah, I think that should be a recommendation, because without naming names, right? I mean, there are at least one of these developments in town. I mean, there's a boatload of OWTS proposed, and there's a lot of private wells around. So
I think we can ask the General Assembly. It won't be solved right away because DEM takes a while to promulgate rules and regulations. But nonetheless, to say, we don't have anything on the books to deal with this.
Yeah.
So, you know, and the General Assembly can direct DEM to do that. So how about the water thing, the additional testing? Are we okay with asking
that's good.
for that? Okay. The parking spaces thing. I think it's insane that in a place like Tiverton where, you know, yes, there's a couple of RIPTA buses that go to Providence every day. Other than that, there is no public transportation in this town. These things are not located in urban areas where you can walk to the market and walk to the doctor's office. We don't have Uber here or Lyft. I don't even know if we have a reliable taxi service. It is nutty to think that you are going to be renting 2-bedroom units that only require one parking space.
Yep.
So I think for municipalities that do not have, I don't know whether or not public transportation is the right word, because technically we do have those RIPTA buses that go to Providence twice a day, so maybe that counts. But if they don't, I'm not sure what the right phrasing is, Ashley. If you don't have that, then you should be allowed to require 2 parking spaces per, 2-bedroom unit, not one. Because where are these people going to park? Where?
On street.
But there's no on-street parking.
Well, yeah, that's the whole.
There's no on-street parking. There's no private parking lots where you can pay to keep your car.
On the grass.
So where are they going to park? So I think that should be a requirement. I don't know, Ashley, though, that maybe you could help me with the language of exactly how to phrase that. Accessory dwelling units should be prohibited where a density bonus has been granted. That is just nuts. Unless we want to say, the other alternative is to say that you can have an ADU, but they count as that is your density bonus. So, Ashley, do you have an opinion one way or the other?
I mean, does it I don't think that it necessarily matters as long as the unit count is neutral. Like, do we care if you can't get them as ADUs or you can get them as ADUs as long as the number of units ultimately that you get out of it is the same? Right? We don't necessarily care.
Well, then if that's your opinion, then it's ADUs count towards the density
If you-
bonus.
So here's the problem with that. I come in, I do a comprehensive permit, I don't include ADUs, and then there's a state law that says that I am guaranteed an ADU.
Right. I tend to think that there's cleaner, simpler ways to say that, that ADUs are prohibited when a density bonus has been granted.
No,
We still have conflicting law there
you can allow the ADUs as long as they're counted,
as part of the density,
but subsequent ADUs shall be prohibited.
right?
So you're covering yourself for
So
an after the
a
fact.
comprehensive permit has to include the ADUs as part of the application for development, and no ADUs will be permitted as part of the development after it's been approved.
Why would they come in with ADUs in that case, if they're getting a density bonus? Why would they?
They would,
Why would they call them ADUs?
I mean, doesn't,
Right, 'cause
it's
they're
a,
not-
it's a design, I mean,
Okay, all right.
I think it's a sales thing, like if you want to create units and have them have ADUs, because you can sell them, because there's a market for them, then you make the choice to put your density into the ADU. If you don't care and you don't want to do that, then you'll just build extra single-family homes on their own lots, or, I mean, I think that the concern is that we'll have a conflict in the state law if you do it the other way, right?
Yeah, but if this.
Like, you'll have one law that says you can and one law that says you can't, and.
Yeah, so you need
they-
to specify.
Right.
Well, yeah, but we're proposing a number of things here that are, might necessarily conflict with the general law because we're addressing a more specific law, right? We're addressing comprehensive permits. I mean, the thing about the ADUs, right, because you can sell them, but you don't have to call them ADUs then, you're just building townhouse units that are smaller, right? Because Ed's nodding his head, because we're restricting ADUs to a certain size. I almost think the cleaner way to say it is that, in a comprehensive permit where the density bonus has been granted, ADUs are not prohibited, are prohibited, that's it. You don't get to get them, now, later, whenever. On the other hand, keep in mind, our legislators have asked us for this because they are willing and they want to bring things forward to help with this situation. But they will probably have staff draft them anyways, so at the end of the day.
Yeah, they have ledge counsel that will.
Yeah, however we put them, they will get drafted by the lawyers at the State House. But we're all okay with you don't get any.
The concept is correct, yeah.
Okay. Units designated affordable this is a tough one, I don't even know if this is legal because it might be an interstate commerce thing, but what the heck, we're asking for everything, so let's go for it. I think that the units that are designated affordable should require proof of Rhode Island residency or employment by a municipal or the state government. Because I don't, and this is particular to Tiverton, but, if the point of this, and if you read carefully through chapter 3, what it refers to over and over and over and over again is addressing the community's needs. Your plan needs to address the community's needs. This needs to address the community needs. You're judged by this standard if you're addressing community needs. I think if we're going to address the community needs, including the greater Rhode Island community, that the affordable units should be restricted to either Rhode Island residency, or maybe you're, a policeman or a firefighter, or you work for a state agency and you haven't been able to, you're employed by, and that's who should be, those are the people who should be allowed to, rent or purchase the affordable units. Massachusetts has.
I don't think it's going to fly.
I know, but
Okay.
we can ask, right? I mean, that is what the law says repeatedly, over and over again, about the communities, the communities, the communities.
And I think that has, for Rhode Island municipalities that are on the border,
Yeah,
I think it's especially,
it's an issue.
Yeah.
yeah.
Especially on the border with Fall River.
You're not going to be allowed to prohibit somebody from conveying a property to somebody from out of state. You're just not.
Well, we're only talking about the affordable units. And remember,
Okay, but so
and-
what?
but remember too, these affordable units in many cases, and not all, but in some cases, involve some level of financial support or financial relief from the state of Rhode Island. Now, some of them may involve federal money too, which is a whole other thing, but listen, we can ask, right? It may not fly, it may not work, but I think we should ask, because
Not going to fly. And what about the rental units?
same thing. You have to push for residency or work for Rhode Island agency or municipality.
Okay, just let the record reflect, your legal counsel is telling you that that is not going to fly.
Okay,
Okay.
okay.
But how many,
So when they say, who the hell
Planner
let you
tends
do
to
this?
agree.
I know.
Okay.
But we're gonna ask, because we'd be remiss not to, because honestly, that is part of the issue here. I mean, if we're supposed to be addressing our community's needs, then who knows, maybe they'll come back and say.
Maybe they'll become part of your community is the point.
Well, we used to be part of their community once in a while.
That's right.
In Massachusetts. Okay, let me get.
how many times tonight has it been said that, hey, plus if they need more than that, they can ask? And now you're advising us, we can't
This is a
ask.
constitutional issue, though, so a little bit different, Dick.
Yeah, well, these days the Constitution doesn't seem to mean much, so, it's all okay. All right, we're gonna ask though, right? We agreed that we're gonna ask for that?
Yep.
Even if we get told,
Against advice of counsel.
well, I will put that, against
Clearly.
advice of counsel. Okay, I don't know what to phrase about this one, it's not on the piece of paper, these are a couple of extras. The 2-year vesting period after final plan, plus one additional mandatory 1-year extension, plus a 5-year build period is completely.
2 1-year extensions.
2 1-year extensions. I mean,
For final.
that is completely
For
unacceptable.
preliminary, you
For
get extensions for preliminary
Yes.
and final.
And final.
And final, right?
Yes.
So, I'm not sure that some of these applications right now across the state aren't essentially developers who are land banking things, and, but in the meantime, we approve them, they don't count towards our 10%, and, they keep coming in. So I don't know what the solution is. All I know is that this doesn't work.
So one of my ideas is sort of the flip side of that, right? Which is, right now, the housing units cannot be counted towards the 10% goal before they are approved for occupancy, right? Which is sort of another way of saying, hey, if you're just gonna just keep kicking the can down the road from a application perspective, you're basically holding us captive to a number, but you're never delivering, or you're taking a rather long time to deliver on that stuff. So we either fix it that way, or can we do something about our ability to count it towards the goal before the certificate of occupancy?
So.
Is there another point in the plan where okay, those are bankable, it can go against the goal?
So here's the only trade-off, I think, to counting it ahead of time, right? Somebody actually proposed to me, why don't we get half credit? I'm like, are you kidding? We'll never get to 10%. We already, 25%, which is what they're building, isn't gonna get us there if we're only getting half credit. But here's the thing. I think Rhode Island Housing is gonna count all the market rate units towards our year-round housing goal. They're not gonna just give us credit for the units, but not apply the denominator. And if these people don't build these things, our denominator's just gonna keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger. So I would rather see some sort of realistic, because of the density bonuses that they're getting, some sort of realistic time frame that's not 2 years of preliminary plan approval, 3 years of master plan approval, and a 5-year building window. I would rather see something that is much shorter, because if they're not prepared to build this, then they shouldn't be coming in with these applications.
The state can set a fee to get an extension. How about that?
Well, that fee would have to be substantial.
Yeah.
Okay?
I think that the message we want to get across to our delegation is that the way it's currently crafted, it's just such a large length of time. Like, something needs to be done about that. Like, we can't just go on and on and on through a application process. The rubber has to hit the road at some point.
Yeah.
Eliminate the extensions or limit the extensions for comprehensive permit projects. They
Yeah.
get one at
exactly.
preliminary, one at final.
Yeah, and maybe a construction period based on the size, you know? I mean, if you're doing 30 units, it should not take you 5 years to build the thing, right? Or, you know, something that, so if these developers aren't gonna actually build this stuff, and frankly, you know, from the sounds of it today, with the cost of lumber and steel, based on the new tariffs, I think, you know, the building trades have been in the press today saying that, you know, this is gonna drive up costs, which is gonna make these developers, you know, they're gonna be asking for the maximum extensions, waiting, you know, to see if prices come down. Okay, so we're gonna are we kind of agreed on that one?
Yeah.
Okay.
How about if we increase the bond? So we tied up some of their money.
Bonds are cheap though, Dick.
Pardon?
Bonds are cheap to get.
Yeah.
No
Oh,
bonds.
cash, okay. Okay, good luck.
Sir.
So we talked about, about having, and having to promulgate rules for this kind of density, right? And then my last one that I didn't put on the list is that I think there's an entirely legitimate case for this, that Tiverton should be allowed to prohibit comprehensive permits in the watershed protection overlay districts of both of our reservoirs, of Stafford Pond and Nonquit Pond. It is insane to take two reservoirs that are both impaired, that we're, you know, trying desperately to hang on to, because let's face it, nobody's making any more reservoirs, and allow comprehensive permits in those districts.
Absolutely.
Yes, definitely. Plus, we have the dump.
Well, you've got that too. So that is my list. Ashley, Todd, Bill, anybody else have any other ideas?
I just have one, and it tries to address the fact that they're eliminating the master plan phase.
It's coming back.
Yeah. Okay, that's coming back. Right,
Well,
because I
there's
think
a
that
proposal for it to be optional.
Optional. Yeah, there's also another proposal that says that you don't have to have any of your state permits till final plan. So
that's
you can
ridiculous.
spend all this time doing
That's
stuff
fine
and then,
if they want to do it that way, as long as there's a provision that says that if your state permits change anything, you return to the planning board. If they wanted to get rid of master plan, they're walking that back because it doesn't work. You want permits at final, you can have permits at final. Anything changes, a line on your drawing changes, you're coming back.
Sure.
okay, anything else?
Do you want a motion on that?
Yes, because I'm
Are you open to suggestions?
If they're very brief, because
Okay.
we've still got a lot, so like super, super brief.
I'll be super brief. Sandra Van Hoff, 254 Fairwood Drive. Yes, I am in a butter to one of these proposed developments, so I'll get that out there. And I applaud you tonight for making all these recommendations and going to put them forward to our 4 assembly people. What about the ones that are already in front of you?
They're vested.
That's, you know,
grandfathered.
is there some way that you can, on some grounds, try to deny them, you know,
We're not
try to
talking-
fight it?
We're not talking about the projects at all, Ms. Van Hoof, I'm sorry.
No, I'm not
No.
talking, but I'm just saying,
That's
in
even too close to the line
general.
for me.
You know, this is fine for future, but here we sit with close to probably 2,900 people between these 3 developments moving into the town.
I'm sorry, Ms. Van Hoff, it is not on our agenda to talk
Okay,
about this
I
application.
just- that's fine.
And we have to be very, very careful that we don't do anything that would put the town in any sort of...
So the next planning board meeting, when it's on the agenda, we can address.
Yes, although I will say that... wasn't there
April
concern
1st.
about not coming back?
Yeah,
It's not going to be April 1st.
it's gonna get continued.
It's going to get continued. The developer is not going to be coming to us.
It's already on the website, it's May 6th.
And we post that on the website. It'll be at the, as of
Okay.
right now, it'll be at the May meeting.
And
Okay,
at that time, we can talk about those things.
that's fine. Thank
Okay,
you.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Hi, Ron Potman, 228 Captain Circle. I have 2 fairly specific suggestions. One is to count the market rate units within a comprehensive plan as half a unit.
There's already a provision to do that if you meet certain requirements.
Okay, so maybe we can accelerate that in some way.
It's for multifamily, though.
It's for multifamily, and you have to...
You have to
there's a
reach it,
formula.
yeah,
It's
you have
like
to reach a
50
certain threshold, yeah.
50% has to be at the second, at the lowest AMI, which is at like 60%, and then it's a complicated formula, but fair enough, yep.
And 2 would be to include Watuppa Pond watershed as part of the restricted area. Being that it is adjacent to a lot of Tiverton residents, and I believe we receive 50% of our water from Fall River.
We do. Here is one question, and I do not know the answer to this about that watershed. Nonquit and Stafford Pond have an identified water protection overlay district that was approved and created in part with DEM. So it's actually a zone, it's demarcated on a map, it's a real thing. I don't know if there is the same thing for the Watuppa Pond. I don't know if that's ever been done. And in order to do something like this, we actually, you have to have a physically demarcated map that says, and it has to have some level of
Science. behind
science
it.
and government approval.
So can't we just go ask the city of Fall River that?
Right.
Well, I guess we could and find out if they have one. I don't know if they do. I admittedly
So can I?
little, but
Can I just use that to ask a question? So I believe, never mind, that's getting into a specific.
North Watuppa is controlled. South Watuppa is not as controlled because of the,
I think it's worth asking the city of Fall
Yeah.
River if they have a
if they have
comparable.
an official, if
Berlin.
they have an officially adopted by the state of Massachusetts, district, a protection over district, in which case, to the point, the North Tiverton does buy 50% of its water from the city of Fall River, just as, Nonquit belongs to the city of Newport. So I think it's definitely worth investigating and finding out if that exists.
Director Berlin's in charge of the North Watuppa.
And just one more, without, walking up to that line the council mentioned, I'll point out a problem. As soon as developers get wind of potential changes that are to their detriment, there'll be a land rush of applications. Is there any way for the General Assembly to allow municipalities to waive the prohibition against moratoriums in Chapter 54. I know I'm shooting for the moon here.
So I'll say that historically, there was a moratorium on the Low to Moderate Income Housing Act. Originally, the LMI Act was only available to nonprofit developers, and they opened the act to for-profit developers, and almost immediately the communities were like crushed by applications, and so they requested help. The General Assembly placed a moratorium on the law and said, you can't use it right now, for-profits can't use it, municipalities go write yourself an affordable housing plan. Once you get that affordable housing plan written, it goes, from state entity to state entity, and we'll all bless it and approve it, and then when everyone, has theirs, we'll lift the moratorium. So it's not unheard of. They have done this in the circumstance where they've made significant changes, and it resulted in municipalities not being essentially prepared to respond.
Well, we can ask. Okay.
Meredith Mucci, I'm 333, East Road, Tiverton, and I'm going to try and be really quick here, but my ideas might be a little too non-specific. I love how gritty this is getting, but it seems like an undue burden to allow growth at a rate that exceeds what we can manage. So in a way, if our city or town is a certain size, we can only be expected to approve things at a certain rate of growth. and sort of tied into that, or maybe completely separately, I lived in another community. Now it was not being forced on them the same way this is happening to us. But when businesses and developments wanted to come in, there was an entrance fee to the community that really just helped cover the cost of the municipalities. So having a fee that says, okay, we're going to accept your plan, we want to help the communities, and we'll give up our land for housing, but we need a new fire truck, we need a water system, we need a school, whatever it is, and charging that as a fee. So anyway, I'm not a legislature-oriented human, but just trying to control that rate.
So we do have something called the development impact fee, and it's tied to a 5-year capital improvement budget and the school department, only the school department. It needs to be updated and expanded probably. But typically, comprehensive permit projects will ask for a waiver from that fee for the affordable units. And we've already granted that to
They get it automatically.
one. And is it automatic?
Yeah.
It's automatic.
For the LMI.
For the LMI units. And I will say that there is a bill that has been introduced that adds language to the LMI Act that allows a municipality to consider things like school capacity and infrastructure, which it currently does not.
Excellent.
I don't know where that will go. It's not part of the Speaker's housing package. It's an independent bill, but it has been introduced.
Excellent. And for the record, I think that those points should be counted the minute we accept the proposal. And then whether they build or they don't build is not on us. That's on them. Thank you.
Anybody else? Any other comments here?
So did you want a motion?
I would like this because we do need to present this to the council, and frankly, our legislators have asked for this as soon as possible because they would like to be able to look at this list and start drafting language because they are willing to propose amendments to the General Assembly to address some of these issues.
So I would make a motion to approve the list that Tricia has presented to us tonight to Town Council with a positive recommendation based on all of the modifications we made tonight, and authorize Tricia to actually draft that language. And since there's some urgency here, to draft the language and present it to town council.
And does your motion include, because I'm happy to do this, Mr. Potvin's comments about market rate units being counted as
Yes.
half? We'll have to do some research on the Watuppa watershed and find out if that is real.
So my motion would also include conferring the discretion on Tricia and staff to make any modifications that they see fit,
Okay.
Based on all discussion.
based on our discussions tonight.
So can I ask the question about, so I mentioned the fact that there is a bill currently that would include language that would allow the municipality to consider things like school capacity and infrastructure and all that. I have no idea if that's going to go anywhere. I don't know if you want to rely on that fact that that bill has been introduced. Do you want to, maybe in your list, you mention the fact that it has been introduced and that you would support that and that conceptually you would have considered giving them that, but you're aware that it's out there? I just don't want to leave that one forgotten.
Right, but we're also leaving it up to the discretion of our delegation to,
Well, right, you're not making a specific recommendation of that because you're aware that there is a bill and conceptually you support that effort.
Yeah, but I do think there's important optics of calling that out
Right.
specifically.
Right. And
So,
I also,
good suggestion.
I also think that, to Mr. Popvin's point earlier, the legislators will understand that once there's talk about change, that people will try and get their things together. But if some of these things are adopted and go into effect once the governor signs them, then I think there is a way that they can address some of that. So, there isn't this massive rush. These comprehensive permits don't get designed in 5 minutes. I mean, these.
Some of them do.
Well,
Sorry.
On the back of a cocktail napkin, but I think we can talk to the legislators and say we are concerned that as soon as there's any discussion about changing these things, there may be a rush. So there's a motion and a second. Did I have a second here?
No second.
No.
I'll second.
Thank you, Steve. Any further discussion? All in favor? Okay, cool. Next on our list is the hydrology study. Has everybody seen the proposal for the hydrology study from the
Yes.
University of Rhode Island? It was in a packet. It was in the packet that Ed sent out. Ed's computer's dead. Okay,
Yes, it was in the,
okay.
I only got it yesterday, okay.
There we go. So, our proposed hydrology study, we have heard back from the 3 professors from the Geosciences Department at the University of Rhode Island with a final proposal on a hydrology study that would evaluate the condition of our groundwater, both in terms of the quantity of our groundwater as well as the quality. The study would take about a year from start to completion because they would want to monitor over both the wet season and the dry season. They will probably pick, based on volunteers, 9 or so wells, maybe a few more, that where they will attach a permanent monitoring device that will measure the level of the groundwater as well as takes quality samples. They also have, I don't totally understand this, but they have some sort of handheld devices too, where they can visit other wells. And your well cap doesn't have to be open, by the way, to do this, but they can where they can take additional measurements. So it's a fairly substantial project. As you can see, the three professors who would be running this are eminently qualified and have a significant level of experience in studying groundwater hydrology. As a matter of fact, they're just finishing a study in Little Compton, which was primarily focused on seawater inundation in wells. But so they also know the geology of Tiverton really well. They understand how much hydric soil we have. They understand the bedrock. They understand our constraints. So. We are proposing to the council, and the fee for this is $72,000, which is not inexpensive. On the other hand, it would finally give us for groundwater the same level of defensible empirical data that we are looking to get from the public water suppliers. So, North Tiverton has a hydraulic model. Stonebridge is developing them. Ashley's firm, Weston and Sampson, is then going to take those two hydraulic models and essentially marry them together to be able to do a system-wide evaluation. At that point, we will have a very, very good understanding of the water infrastructure capacity of the public water systems. This study will let us do something that is similar with groundwater, where we will have real empirical evidence and be able to identify areas of town for future development or future growth where we need to be more restrictive, where we need to be less restrictive, where we need to worry about additional testing. So I think it's a really great idea. We do need to propose it to the council, at least in small discussions. There seems to be an interest in this, but I am looking for a vote for the planning board to recommend to the council that they engage the professors at that listed at the University of Rhode Island to undertake this study.
I am in full and utter support of this. I just have one question. Did, in any of your conversations with the team of professors, did they happen to allude to or recommend anything that would happen in terms of ongoing study after the year one baseline? Or like we established a baseline and then sort of like, is there an impetus to reevaluate or?
I think the thought is that, there will essentially be a geospatial database of the mapping of the wells, both the ones that have monitors hooked up to them and the ones that are addressed with this handheld tool. And at that point, they can help advise us, listen, in 2 years, you should reevaluate the groundwater here, or, in that area over there, you might suggest annual nitrate testing. So I think that not that they'll do it, but they can provide us with some guidance. They also understand, part of the reason that they're looking at not just quantity, they're looking at quality, is that they understand that we have some of the poorest soils in the state for septic systems, that septic leachate or excessive septic leachate is clearly an issue in terms of, potential contamination of wells. So I think they'll be able to give us a set of best management practices going forward, which may include some regular level of evaluation, if that answers your question.
Yeah, thank you.
I think that they also need to keep an eye on the leachate coming out of the dump.
Well,
there were times when it ran bright orange.
Yeah, to your point before it was capped, so PAR Engineering, which is the engineering firm that's been monitoring the landfill for a number of years now, for a very long time, and also did the engineering work for capping it, they have an ongoing monitoring process. They have monitoring wells, a number of them that are installed there that are regularly tested for every substance known to mankind, I'm pretty sure, where they report that. That data, though, interestingly, will be useful to the professors at the University of Rhode Island
Oh, yeah,
because
that's what I'm saying.
because that data includes a lot of well depth monitoring that is historic, so it's only one location will help. But there is ongoing regular monitoring of the test wells at the landfill site, and will be, as far as I can tell, for decades. So,
All right, so you want a motion?
yes, please.
And this is a motion to make the recommendation to the town council?
Yes.
Is that what you want, Trish, for the town council to hire the scientists?
Because the way that the agenda item is.
That's why I'm asking.
Yeah.
Didn't we agree that we would ask them to hire, to work with the planning board?
Yes, to work with the planning board. How's that?
For the planning board to hire
For the planning board to hire.
and the town council to fund.
Okay.
I'd like to make a, all right, I'll make a motion. I'll make a motion to authorize the planning board to engage and hire the University of Rhode Island to conduct groundwater hydrology study and make subsequent requests for this capital expenditure to the town council for funding.
Second.
Contingency fund. I would amend it to ask them to use their contingency fund.
Oh,
I
don't care where they
don't want
get
to
the
get
money
into
from. I don't wanna
subscribing
ask that.
how they fund.
I think your motion was to request capital expenditure or other funding. Just as
In
it's
spirit,
worded
yes,
in the agenda.
yes.
Yeah.
I was literally reading
I know.
the agenda.
That's why you're
Okay,
brilliant.
so there's a motion. Is there a second?
I seconded it.
All in favor? Awesome.
Aye.
Who did you-
I did.
I just want to thank Trish for a lot of legwork on that one.
Yes.
So here's the other thing, and I want to apologize about this. I keep referring to them as the University of Rhode Island professors. It's in part because I'm not entirely sure of the pronunciations of their names. And so I don't want to mispronounce them. But their CVs are attached for you to see, and as you can see, they are eminently qualified to do this work. Okay, next we have, all right, we're done with these tables.
Design standards.
Design standards. So, given that it's 9:30, I'm not sure if we want to, but I don't want these to fall off of the list. So, everybody has Ashley's copy of the design standards, the shoulds and shalls that she produced a while ago, and we can get you a copy, correct? It might not be in your packet, but these have all been distributed, right?
I think all we need to do, though, is just set a date for a hearing.
Well, I've got to bring you back the rest of them, so we'll do that for your April meeting. You'll have a draft that will show you every district added to the draft that you've already seen, which I believe had the form-based
Yes.
code,
Yes.
and I believe we also had highway, commercial, general, commercial, and industrial. We'll bring everything into one, so you can look at that as one piece for your April meeting.
Good, and then in April, we can set a public hearing.
Yep.
To continue. No motion to continue.
It's not necessary.
I don't think we need one, but I didn't want this to, I don't want
Yep.
this to fall by the wayside. So we'll plan on having that for April. We've already discussed commercial marinas. Mr. Gerlach, would you like to tell us about your letter to statewide planning and what
Sure.
regarding education and what, if any, response you received?
Yeah, so several meetings ago, we discussed our frustrations with Rhode Island statewide planning and their sort of situation around available training, how they do or do not promote available training on their website, and I volunteered to take an action to reach out to them. I did, and we've had some decent back and forth. You have that email in your packet. There's been some additional back and forth from them that I'm still waiting for them to actually respond back to. I made some additional, basically, they came back, I said, hey, we can't find anything about training on your website. They came back and said, thanks for the input. And they made some changes to their website where basically they're going to list any available training in their What's New section, which is located on their landing page when you dial up their website. I've made some additional suggestions that I think could help users of that website navigate a little bit more cleanly. And I also did sort of ask them or inquire about expanding training capacity and referred them back to a conversation that Ashley has been having with them about being certified in order to deliver that training to increase the capacity and frankly help us and the other communities that Ashley and her firm support. So I'm waiting to hear back on that. Action equals reaction, so
There you go.
it's all good.
And I think-
they did send out new training dates. I know I signed up for one, but yeah, it's happening in March.
Unfortunately, I'm not going to be here in March that week, which is too bad because I would have done it, but I think everybody else got it. So, Bill, keep up the good work. Eventually, they'll have some sort of calendar published.
Well, I'm on their mailing list now. I'm getting stuff from them almost every day.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you.
Well, they just had their monthly newsletter come out as well, which anecdotally did not contain any information about ongoing training, but we're making progress.
I did attend a 3-hour seminar a few days ago on planning and zoning, and it was very good.
Yeah, that's the intro. That's the intro
Yeah,
training. Yeah.
Yep. Okay,
it's coming, I was told.
excellent. I do have a question. Item H is to approve the minutes, but I didn't get any minutes in
Yeah,
there.
I didn't finish them, so I sent them out today. You put them on the 13th?
Okay, let's move those to the 13th.
And then any edits they can do.
Yeah, if you guys can redline your stuff and anybody who wants to make red lines and give it to Ed before then, that would be great. And you don't have to do it electronically, you can do it on a piece of paper, that's fine. Status of the zoning code revision committee, we're meeting on Thursday. And I think we're gonna take up residential zones. Primarily, we have a few other things to do, but we're getting started, so we'll be meeting on Thursday.
Can I ask a question then? So when are we doing residential zones here?
As soon as you get them from the zoning revision committee.
So do you need to be complete with all of that, or can it be sort of as?
I think it's better to do
Better
them
in
sequentially
progress.
so that
Okay.
one hand isn't doing one set of things with residential zones and the other hand is doing this. So, I mean, I think the good thing is for the most part, residential stuff won't be that hard. The watershed overlay district is gonna take a little bit of work because those regulations are now 25 years old and they're completely out of date. So it's time to update those, and we may need to reach out to URI, to Grow Smart, to, to Lorraine Joubert, to try and get a feel for what we should be doing with those. So that might be a little bit, but I think that the basic residential stuff, there's not that many exotic things in there. We do have to work on the animal stuff, which, as you know, we had Officer Sartini here with us in February, and we're going to continue those discussions, as well as talk to the Eastern Rhode Island Conservation District, because they have a lot of best management practices for livestock management, some of which we might include in our ordinances. So,
I'm just trying to figure out timing, whether you
I'm
want
trying to give you a break, Todd, because...
whether you want the highway, whether you want these commercial zones to go to town council right now, or if
So-
we're doing residential stuff in 2 weeks to
Yeah,
put them
so-
together.
Well, I think it's probably going to take longer than that. But
Okay.
here's the other thing, and I don't want to alarm anybody about the commercial zone, but there is some discussion about slightly modifying the location in the commercial zone, adding a property here, moving some highway commercial around, but that would be a map change. So the thought is to wait until we've done, because we're also going to talk about that little district up, I don't know what we're calling it, up by Shove Street there, that potentially could be a map change. We only want to do one more map change.
Right.
So, but I think that we should go forward with the commercial zones to the council. We promised them that we would be getting them to them, so we voted tonight, they can be on their way. And they'll have to advertise them. And then when,
Is it the intent of the council to take those up each time they're sent, or it
believe
is?
so.
Okay. I didn't know if they were
Just trying to
gonna
consolidate
collect
things.
yeah.
them and then do it as one, or just gonna keep amending the use table over and over again?
Well, I don't know.
Well, we're almost done, right? I mean, I don't think there'll be an enormous number of changes in the residential zone. I just don't think there will be. I think there may be some new livestock things that come. The watershed, which is not really in the use table, but in its own separate section, that will probably get amended. We do have to talk to the folks at Village Commercial, but I do think, at least in terms of commercial things, the council is interested in wanting to get that resolved as soon as possible. They also want to get the residential stuff done, so my impression is that when it's ready, we send it to them. And we did promise we would be sending them highway commercial, general commercial.
Yeah, no,
industrial, and
I'm
light.
not
No, I didn't-
questioning that. I just wasn't sure if what their plan is to like immediately take that and go have a public hearing, or are they gonna wait for the next,
That's up to
you know,
them.
I know that, didn't
Yes.
know if we knew.
Yes,
So
Counselor.
So it's all up to our president, we do what he wants to do, but I think smaller packages are easier to
Yeah.
digest. You know, the big one that they got, it was too much.
So I think this is probably better than. So that's where we are on that.
Can I ask one last question? I'm sorry.
Yes, sir.
When you're doing the residential zones at the zoning ordinance committee, are you also discussing the PDP?
That's in the second set, didn't we say?
Yeah.
I put it in I put together a schedule, I think I put it in there somewhere.
Yes, so one of the things, yes, it's in the schedule. I think that,
We
the
can
council
move it
has
if
made
it's a
an
priority.
announcement that they have reached an agreement with a buyer
Yes.
for in the PDP. And in an effort to only do this once, I think it would be good, because Ashley's going to meet with that buyer and find out about their plans.
Well, beyond just whatever those requests are.
Right,
We have other changes to make in the PDP.
Right.
To make it consistent with changes you've made already.
Right.
Yes.
To fix the review procedure.
yes. So I think we're only going to do that once. And that might be something that we send to the council as a standalone thing
Okay.
that's relatively small. It might be, and they might decide to hold it and do one public hearing, but that might go to them as a relatively,
Does the zoning ordinance committee need to review that first?
I don't know, I honestly don't know if that, I think we could do a quick review of it. I think that particular zone is going to be more of a planning board thing than a zoning revision committee thing.
Okay.
Okay, then update from the North Tiverton Business Park Committee. Ashley? Or Stu?
Either one. The committee has been working on our end, we are working on looking at some of the examples we're gonna use as like redevelopment opportunities. We're starting to map things. They're gonna have some guest speakers and talk to them about organizing Main Street. So that'll be coming up. They are handing this off to EDC for EDC to present to the council, although we've talked about the fact that, it'll be a joint effort. We're not gonna throw this at the EDC and then tell them to go deal with it. But this all has to happen by, I think it's August. So working hard in that direction to have a final report for the council.
Okay. Well, I think that's it for the evening, unless anybody's got any other questions.
I like to say, it was certainly helpful that you gave us the entire document. It's in so many pieces, but it makes it really easy to do that, where we are at any one point.
And the color coding also.
Yeah, that's been super.
Yes.
Certainly.
So much
Just
appreciation and thanks to Todd.
Yeah, here.
Okay, Rosemary, you're up.
Well, before that, we have a special meeting on March 13th with ECP. And then the next one after that is April 1st.
Is that on the agenda?
Yeah, it's on the last
It's
page.
on the last page.
Just listed, that's all.
That's all.
Just like it
Just a
usually is.
reminder.
And
Oh, okay.
March 13
On the back, on the last page.
will be just one
That's a
application.
Thursday. That will be a Thursday rather
That'll
than...
be a Thursday, but we're
the Tuesday.
beginning at the usual time of 6:30
Right.
here.
Yep.
Okay, and having said that, I'll make a motion to adjourn at 9:45.
All right.
And so we are adjourned.